Germany of Iron and Blood. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 701. Bet on the fortunes of the country. The elders of the island country and the cabinet ministers quickly reached an agreement. Their fanatical attempt to pin the national destiny of the entire island country on this gamble once again. If the bet wins, the island nations will soar into the sky, and no one can curb their rise. If the bet is lost, the island country will be completely finished. My lords, the rise and fall of the empire is a battle here. We have no choice but to do our best to win for the empire. Shanks and Yupping said with a serious face. Hey, the empire must win. Everyone shouted frantically, although they have not yet reported to Emperor Taisho and consulted Emperor Taisho for his opinion. However, everyone seems to have selectively forgotten this point. In their eyes, Emperor Taisho was nothing more than a human-shaped stamp. The army will mobilize immediately. We need more troops. If we go to war with Germany, 17 permanent divisions will not be enough at all. Okashinasuke said. Yes, the Germans have mobilized more than 3 million troops in this war. Moreover, their troops are equipped with more advanced weapons than ours. The quality of the soldiers is also very strong. Even the officers and soldiers of the Imperial Army, the quality is not inferior to the Germans. But if there are too few troops, it will be very difficult to defeat them. Especially we have to send troops to occupy those colonies, which will disperse our strength. The size of the army must be further increased. Dashan also said, mobilize 10 divisions first. If it is not enough, then mobilize the second batch. Not enough. I think 10 divisions are enough. The Germans should not send too many troops to the Far East. After all, this place is too far away from the German mainland. If there are too many troops, the logistical pressure alone will be enough to make them collapse. Shanks and Yupping said. Hi, Yamagata-sama. Okashinasuke nodded. The island army has only 17 permanent divisions. This is because they do not have enough military expenses. If they can seize a large number of colonies this time, they will have enough funds to support more troops. The size of the island nation's army can also be further expanded. The status of the army in the island's cabinet can also be improved because of this. After the elders and cabinet ministers gave orders, the army and navy of the island nation immediately mobilized. The officers cancelled their leave, returned to the unit, and began combat preparations. Soldiers in the village also received a report and began to rush to the assembly place of the troops, preparing to serve again. Once the expansion of the 10 divisions is completed, the strength of the Japanese army will be further expanded, and this naturally gave them more confidence. The islanders are paranoid and addicted to gambling. It stands to reason that the head of the government should be a rational person. This will make it less likely for them to make mistakes when formulating policies. After all, if something goes wrong, the consequences will be very serious, and it will bring a heavy blow to the country. However, the island countries are different. Their politicians are more gambling. Especially after winning the bet, it will make them regarded as a shortcut, always thinking that they are lucky and will win the bet, but they seem to have never considered how serious the consequences will be if they lose the bet. The actions of the islanders were quick, and the preparations for the expedition were completed in just half a month. Both the army staff and the navy's combined fleet have formulated relevant tactics. The senators and cabinet ministers listened to the reports of General Hasegawa Yamachi, Chief of Army Staff, and General Ichun Goro, Commander of the Navy Combined Fleet. Your Excellency Prime Minister, Your Excellencies. The army is mainly divided into 3 stages in this battle. The first stage is that we send troops to capture Britain, France and other countries in Southeast Asia before the Germans react. Colonies, quickly occupy these colonies, and then prepare for defense. The second stage is to resist the German attack. Once the Germans attack us, the army will try its best to defeat them and ensure our control of these colonies. The first stage is to further attack other colonies, such as Australia and India. After defeating the German army, Hasegawa Yoshimitsu introduced. A group of veterans and cabinet ministers are quite satisfied with Hasegawa Hayaodao's introduction. They also sincerely hope that they can advance to the third stage. In this way, it will be possible to attack Australia and India. The vastness of Australia and the richness of India are the dreams of these islanders. If these colonies can be obtained, the rise of the island country will truly be unstoppable by anyone. In the first phase, we will send the 1st and the 2nd divisions to attack the Indochina colony, the 3rd division to attack the Malaya colony, and the 6th division to attack the Lion City. The 4th and 5th divisions attack Myanmar. The 7th division, 8th division, 9th division and 10th division will also go to these areas in the later stage as a reserve team. The rest of the troops will stay in the mainland. In the second stage, if the troops deployed in Southeast Asia cannot defeat the Germans, then we have to send more troops. The 10 newly mobilized divisions were all dispatched to Southeast Asia. At the same time, start the second mobilization. In this mobilization, we will mobilize 20 to 25 divisions. In the third stage, we will send 10 and 15 divisions to attack Australia and India respectively. The British hardly have much military power in Australia and India. After encountering our attack, they have no way to resist it. Hasegawa Hayodeo continued. Well, very good. Let's implement it according to this plan. After discussing with the other elders, Shanks and Yupan decided. Hi, Senator. Hasegawa nodded emphatically. My lord, your excellencies. Because of the disparity in strength, the Imperial Navy will mainly assist the Imperial Army in this battle. In the early days, the Imperial Navy will the Imperial Army to Southeast Asia. Once the German Navy enters the Far East, the Imperial Navy will not fight with Germany. In the decisive battle of the Navy, it is necessary to preserve strength, stick to the homeland, and ensure the security of the homeland. If the Imperial Army can defeat the German army, then the Imperial Navy will be responsible for sending the army's troops to Australia and India. General Ijungoro said. Compared to the army, the navy of the island country is almost a soy sauce existence in this battle. But there is no way to do it. Who made their strength so poor? If they rashly fought a decisive battle with the German navy, they would definitely be wiped out. Instead of that, it's better to be a turtle and preserve your strength. Chapter 702, The Emperor's Wrath. On the night of June 28, 1915, the army of the island country secretly set off from the mainland, escorted by the navy, to Southeast Asia. On the morning of July 3, the joint naval fleet of the island country bombarded Hanoi, and the 1st Division of the island country army landed in Hanoi with almost no resistance. The island army occupied Hanoi that day. On July 4, the United Fleet escorted the 2nd Division of the island army to attack Saigon, and occupied Saigon almost without bloodshed. The French colonial officials who were originally ordered to wait here for officials fled from Germany without saying a word. In the French colony of Indochina, there were not many regular troops, and the rest were almost all security forces composed of local aborigines. Although the security army has hundreds of thousands of troops, they have no fighting spirit at all. After being attacked by the army of the island country, they fled one after another. It can be said that the entire Indochina colony, like a ripe peach, fell into the hands of the islanders. On July 5, the 3rd Division of the island army attacked the Malayan colony, and the 6th Division attacked the Lion City. The British colonial officials and troops stationed here immediately fled without any resistance. On July 7, the 4th and 5th Divisions of the Japanese army attacked Burma. British colonial troops and officials stationed in Burma withdraw to India. In just a few days, the entire Southeast Asia seemed to have fallen into the hands of the islanders. Although, at this moment, the islanders only occupied a small part of the area. However, their attacks were unstoppable. With the colonial officials and armies of Britain and France giving up resistance, these colonies would soon fall into the hands of the islanders. Even the islanders themselves did not expect that they would win so easily and occupy so much land at once. Some radical island country army generals even shouted the slogan of marching to India and Australia, demanding that these two important colonies be defeated in one battle. However, fortunately, the leaders of the island government were not dazzled by the victory. They ordered the army to occupy these colonies as soon as possible and then prepare to resist the attack of the Germans. At the same time, more troops and combat supplies of the island army were also sent to Southeast Asia. They knew that once Germany launched an attack, the navy of the island country would not be able to withstand the German navy. At that time, their homeland will be separated from Southeast Asia. Under such circumstances, they had no choice but to send as many troops as possible to Southeast Asia and transport more combat supplies before the battle broke out. What the islanders did undoubtedly shocked the whole world. Almost all countries did not expect that the islanders would have the courage to seize the colonies in Southeast Asia at this time. Especially the colonies of Indochina, which had been transferred to Germany by the French government. Even though the handover between the two parties has not been completed, the colony is already German. What the islanders do is clearly a provocation to Germany. Of course, the island country and Germany are already in a state of war, and they should have launched an attack on the German colonies. British colonies in Southeast Asia, although they do not belong to Germany. But everyone knows that after Germany defeated Britain, those colonies should belong to Germany. If the islanders do this, they are simply taking food from the mouth of a tiger. What's more, Britain is still an ally of the island country. Although the island country has abolished the alliance between the two countries, what they have done is undoubtedly a typical representative of ingratitude. Naturally, this was cast aside by the whole world. It's just that the islanders have always been thick-skinned and never care about the accusations of the outside world. All they care about is whether they can get benefits. The capital of Germany, Berlin, the Imperial Palace, Qin Tian's office, all the senior military and political officials of the empire gathered here. The atmosphere in the office is a bit dignified. Emperor Qin Tian's face was as if a volcano was about to erupt. The ministers of the empire all looked unhappy, and the generals of the military were filled with righteous indignation. Some people even have eager looks in their eyes. Originally, the only war left was the war against Britain. After that, there were almost no large-scale wars. This is undoubtedly very regrettable for the generals of the military. But now, the islanders have jumped out to provoke the empire. Isn't that a suicide attempt? This also gave these military generals a chance to continue the war. Everyone, I'm afraid that the entire Southeast Asia will soon fall into the hands of the islanders. They have undoubtedly slapped the empire hard, Qin Tian said coldly. Originally, everyone thought that after Germany warned the island country would restrain itself. After all, compared to the powerful Germany, the island country is just a weak ant. However, I didn't expect that the islanders would be so bold and chose to take the risk and directly attack the colonies in Southeast Asia. Although those colonies already belong to Germany in name, or will soon belong to Germany, but Germany simply has not had time to receive it. Now, those colonies have fallen into the hands of the islanders. This is not only a great blow to Germany's reputation, but also strengthens the strength of the islanders. Your Majesty, the actions of the islanders are looking for death. Don't they know that they are offending the empire? Once the empire sends a large army to go on an expedition, they will definitely be crushed. Prime Minister Bismarck also expressed indignation. An ant dares to provoke a lion. Isn't that courting death? Your Majesty, what the islanders have done has dealt a huge blow to the empire. We can no longer just sit idly by. We must send troops to defeat the islanders and take back all those colonies. Foreign Minister Vahetha also said, Your Majesty, although the main force of the Imperial Army is preparing to fight against the United Kingdom and destroy guerrillas in Eastern Europe, the Imperial Army can still transfer 1 or 2 legions to use in operations in the Far East. Minister of War and Chief of the General Staff von Falkenhayn said, in his opinion, drawing 1 or 2 legions is enough to defeat the island nation. Although the island country army defeated the Russians more than 10 years ago, the strength of the island country army has not changed at all compared with more than 10 years ago. Although the German army has always been number 1 in the world, its strength has undergone a radical change. Your Majesty, the navy of the island country is not strong. Except for the 4 King Khan class battle cruisers, the rest of the warships are quasi-dreadnoughts or pre-dreadnoughts. There is nothing to worry about at all. The Imperial Navy only needs to send a piece of debris. A fleet is enough to destroy them. Marshal Earl Tirpitz, Minister of the Navy, was very confident. Chapter 703, Emperor's Determination. If we want to launch an attack on the island country, how many troops will it take to defeat them? Qin Tian looked at the important ministers of the empire and asked, "Your Majesty, if it is a navy, the Imperial Navy can defeat them by dispatching a fleet consisting mainly of 6 battle cruisers. The island navy currently only has 4 King Khan class battle cruisers that can be regarded as dreadnoughts. The battleships are all pre-dreadnoughts or quasi-dreadnoughts, so there is nothing to worry about. If you want to be safe, you can send 3 Mackensen class battle cruisers and 3 Derfliner class battle cruisers. I believe that is enough for us to win," said Marshal Count Tirpitz, Minister of the Navy. Qin Tian nodded. The island nation's navy at this time is far from the island nation's navy that can compete with the powerful US Navy in the Pacific Ocean decades later. In another time and space, the navies of the island countries were the first to focus on the development of aircraft carriers and carrier-based aircraft. This made them beat the US Navy all over the place in the early days of the Pacific War and suffered heavy losses. It weren't for the fact that the industrial strength of the United States is much stronger than that of the island countries. It is very difficult to say who will win the Pacific War. The main reason why the island nation's navy was defeated was that the United States used its strong industrial strength to drag it to death. What about the army? If the island country is to be defeated or destroyed, how many troops does the army need to send? Qin Tian then asked. The face of Marshal von Falkenhayn, Minister of the Imperial Army and Chief of the General Staff, suddenly became serious. "Your Majesty, if we want to defeat the island country, or even destroy it, we have to mobilize an army of about 1.5 million or even 2 million. Marshal von Falkenhayn said. "Got so many troops are dispatched? How can that be done? The logistical supplies alone are enough to make us collapse." Admiral Walzer, the Deputy Chief of Staff, exclaimed. Prime Minister Billow and other high-ranking government officials suddenly looked bad. How much military expenditure would it cost to dispatch an army of 2 million to fight thousands of miles away? Even if the German Empire has reaped huge benefits in this war, I'm afraid it will not be able to sustain it. The island country is not a small country. Although their industrial strength is not strong, the basic military industry can still meet their own needs. Especially after they occupy Southeast Asia, they can obtain the rich resources there, which will make their industries more developed. The population of the island country is 50 million. This means that, if they want to work hard, they can arm an army of 4 to 5 million, or even more. In addition, the people of the island country are very brave in battle. It can be described as fearless and fearless. Its fighting will is no worse than that of the Imperial Army. Even if our weapons and equipment is a little more advanced, but if we want to destroy the island country, no matter what, we need an army of about 2 million. Then, Marshal Falkenhayn said solemnly, if the island country and the empire were not far apart, or even neighboring countries, then it would be very easy for the empire to defeat them. Unfortunately, they are on the other side of the earth. This also makes us want to defeat them. You have to pay more. Marshal Earl Tirpitz also said. Could it be that we have nothing to do with the islanders? Then how can we take back the colonies in Southeast Asia? Foreign Minister Wahid asked. Yes. No matter what, the colonies in Southeast Asia cannot be occupied by the islanders like this. They have been colonized by the British and French for many years, and they are all rich places. If the empire can obtain these colonies, the benefits will be even greater. What's more, it can also weaken the strength of the islanders. Other senior government officials also suggested. Very well, originally I thought you would despise the islanders. If that's the case, I'm afraid we will pay a higher price for it. Qin Tian said with a serious face. I know more about the people of the island country than you. People in that country are quite paranoid and don't cherish life. Not only are they very cruel to the enemy, but they are also very cruel to themselves. If one day our army attacks, we will encounter unimaginable resistance from the mainland of the island country. At that time, women, children, and the elderly will all attack us. Therefore, it will be very difficult to destroy the island country. In addition to defeating their army, I'm afraid that we must be prepared to massacre millions or even more civilians. Of course, our own casualties will also be great. Qin Tian said. Could it be that the islanders are crazy? Otherwise, how could they be so crazy? Prime Minister Billow said. Indeed, the islanders are all lunatics. Their army, advocating the spirit of Bushido, honors bravery and death on the battlefield. Even their citizens think the same way. It is conceivable that once we want to destroy them, what kind of crazy enemies will you encounter? Therefore, once you attack the mainland of the island country, you must not have any kindness. Anyone who poses a threat to the army must be eliminated. Otherwise, the kindness towards the island people will it is cruel to oneself. Qin Tian reminded. Although, Qin Tian knew that these military and political ministers of the empire might not fully believe what he said. However, it is still very necessary to remind them in advance. This may be the difference between Eastern and Western thinking. Westerners fought bravely, though. However, even if they choose to surrender, when it is impossible, they will not be regarded as shameful. However, the Easterners are different. They regard surrender as a disgrace. Especially the islanders are very crazy. Even if they are in a difficult situation, they will scream and launch a desperate attack. Even if they are all broken, they will not surrender. This is why in World War II in another time and space, few island soldiers would surrender on the battlefield. Of course, the rabble with little training in the latter part of the war was different. At least the elite troops of the island country army can definitely fight to the end. Your Majesty, in this way, we must be cautious if we want to launch a war against the island country. Marshal Earl Tirpitz said. Yes. Although the islanders seem to be weak now, they are not easy to deal with. In order to ensure the supremacy of the empire, we will have a battle with the islanders, but I hope that the war against the islanders can be put aside. In the end, in that case, we can concentrate all our strength to deal with them and wipe them out completely. Qin Tian said with determination. Chapter 704, Fleet Expedition. Your Majesty, when we fight against the island country this time, the goal of the operation should be to recover the colonies in Southeast Asia. In this way, we can avoid launching attacks on the island country itself, thereby reducing the casualties of the troops. The current empire is also unable to support more than one battle. A massive expedition of 2 million troops, suggested Field Marshal Falkenhayn, Secretary of State for War and Chief of the General Staff. Well, in this war, we only need to recover Southeast Asia. Next time, after we have eliminated the other powerful countries one by one, we will attack the mainland of the island country. That time, we must destroy the island country once and for all. Get rid of them. Qin Tian said. Yes, Your Majesty. Everyone replied. From Qin Tian's words, they could clearly feel Qin Tian's murderous intent towards the island nation, which made them a little strange. Why would His Majesty the Emperor hate the island nation so much? However, they couldn't understand the reason, even if they wanted to break their heads. They could only attribute it to the fact that islanders are inherently hateful. Your Majesty, the main force of the Imperial Army has been used in the upcoming attack on the British mainland in the battle to wipe out the guerrillas in the Eastern Territories. Even if you want to send troops to Southeast Asia, there may not be any extra troops. Therefore, it is suggested that we first send the navy to the Far East to attack the islanders. If we can destroy the navy of the island nation, we may be able to force the island nation to abandon Southeast Asia. In this way, we can get back Southeast Asia at the lowest cost. If the fleet goes on an expedition, the materials consumed will be less. It is far inferior to dispatching a huge army. Marshal Earl Tirpitz suggested. Qin Tian thought for a while, then nodded. The Imperial Army now has only 12 legions in total. 4 regiments were fighting guerrillas in the east, and 4 regiments were preparing to launch an attack on the British mainland. The other 4 legions have to be stationed in newly occupied areas such as France and Belgium, and enough troops need to be left in the mainland. Therefore, it is indeed very difficult to transfer the army to Southeast Asia. First, the navy forms an expeditionary fleet to destroy the island nation's navy. If it can win and force the island nation to return it to Southeast Asia, that would undoubtedly be the best. If the island nation disagrees, then send the army to attack Southeast Asia. At that time, we may have achieved a breakthrough in our battle against Britain. The battle against the guerrillas in the east is also more favorable to us. Only then will we be able to deploy troops to go on an expedition to Southeast Asia, Qin Tian said. Although the size of the German army has reached more than 3 million, with Germany's population and industrial strength, further mobilization can fully support it. But Qin Tian didn't think it was necessary to mobilize again. Almost all Germans believe that the war is about to end and the empire is about to win the war. If mobilization is carried out at this time, it will definitely cause panic among the people. It will even further cause social unrest. In that case, it is not so good. What's more, the German government has begun to formulate a series of policies, preparing to cancel the wartime system and restore the economy. Once it is mobilized, it will have a great impact on it. That's not a good deal. It is undoubtedly the best thing, to be able to finish this war with the existing army. Yes, Your Majesty. Both Marshal Count Tirpitz and Marshal von Falkenhayn nodded. Marshal Tirpitz, give me the list of the expedition fleet tomorrow. Qin Tian said. Yes, Your Majesty. Marshal Earl Tirpitz nodded. After the meeting, Qin Tian stared at the corners hanging on the wall. On the east side of the map, there are several islands that look like poop. There is the mainland of the islanders. In another time and space, I can only be an angry youth, and at most I can yell a few words. In this time and space, I will definitely kill you islanders. Qin Tian swore secretly. As long as there is such an opportunity, I believe no Chinese will give up. The next day, Marshal Earl Tirpitz met with him, and he brought a list of ships that formed the 8th Fleet, as well as a candidate for the commander of the expedition fleet. Your Majesty, since the 4 strongest warships in the island nation's navy are all battle cruisers, I suggest that the expedition fleet this time should not draw battleships, and be composed of battle cruisers. To be on the safe side, as for capital ships, I suggest a composition of 3 Mackensen class battle cruisers, 3 Der Flieger class battle cruisers and 3 Molt class battle cruisers. For cruisers, dispatch 4 Corners Fort class light cruisers, 2 Wiesbaden class light cruisers, 2 Pillow class light cruisers and 2 Glaudenz class light cruisers, a total of 10 light cruisers. As for destroyers, we the cutting-edge destroyers that will be dispatched this year include 14 V-class destroyers, 7 G-class destroyers and 6 S-class destroyers, a total of 27 destroyers. Because it is a long-distance expedition, the fleet will have 8 supply ships and 2 medical ships, to ensure sufficient logistical support for the fleet. Marshal Earl Tirpitz reported to Qin Tian. Qin Tian nodded. He has always been very concerned about the navy. From the report of Marshal Count Tirpitz, it can be known that Marshal Count Tirpitz is very concerned about the expedition fleet this time, almost dispatching the most powerful battle cruisers, light cruisers and destroyers. Even though this is a long-distance expedition, the navy of the island country has a local advantage. However, the German navy still has a very big advantage. As long as there are no accidents, there will be no doubt about winning the final victory. Fleet Commander, who is going to be in charge? Qin Tian asked. As for the commander of the fleet, I suggest General Spee to be the commander. He has been the commander of the Far East Fleet before, and he is familiar with the Far East and the Pacific Ocean. It is undoubtedly the most suitable for him to be the commander of the expeditionary force. Already, Qin Tian said. Well, then General Spee will be the commander of the expedition fleet. Qin Tian approved of this. By the way, remind General Spee that, if the island nation's navy avoids the war, or if the island nation insists on not surrendering, even if we defeat the island nation's navy, then we will need to rely on the fleet to attack the coastal cities of the island nation. We have forced the islanders to agree to our conditions. In that case, a lot of civilian casualties may be caused. If General Spee is unwilling to face such a situation, you can just say that we will reconsider the candidate for the fleet commander. Qin Tian said. Yes, Your Majesty, I understand. Marshal Earl Tirpitz nodded. Chapter 705. Attitudes of Various Countries. July 10, 1915, Wilhelmshaven Naval Base, Germany. Marshal Count Tirpitz, the German Minister of the Navy, arrived here in person to see off the expedition fleet that was about to go to the Far East. Navy Chief of Staff Marshal von Pohl, High Seas Fleet Commander Admiral Reinhard Scheer, High Seas Fleet Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Hipper, and other senior officials of the Imperial Navy were also present. This time, the Imperial Navy dispatched a fleet to fight in seas thousands of miles away. Undoubtedly, there were great accidents and crises. Therefore, the Imperial Navy must be cautious. In addition, this battle is very important to the Empire. Therefore, Lieutenant General Spee, who served as the commander of the expeditionary force, was undoubtedly under great pressure. General Spee, Your Majesty attaches great importance to this expedition to the island country. I hope you can win this battle. Marshal Earl Tirpitz said. Yes, Your Excellency Marshal, I guarantee that we will win. Lieutenant General Spee said. General Spee, since you have chosen to be the commander of the expedition fleet, you should understand the difficulties involved. I hope that you can consider it for the benefit of the Empire. Marshal Earl Tirpitz reminded. Lieutenant General Spee knew what Earl and Marshal Tirpitz meant, and he nodded heavily. Although the ceremony was brief, it was very solemn. Amidst the majestic music, the Imperial Navy Expedition Fleet left the military port and sailed into the vast ocean. This huge fleet consisting of 9 battle cruisers, 10 light cruisers, 27 destroyers, 8 supply ships and 2 medical ships left the naval port and embarked on an expedition to the island country. Standing on the bridge of the flagship Mackensen battleship, Lieutenant General Spee remained silent. He served as the commander of the Far East Fleet, so it is undoubtedly very suitable to be the commander of the expedition fleet. Among the generals of the German Navy, it is estimated that no one is more familiar with the situation in the Far East than him. Although, this time an attack may be launched on the coastal cities of the island country, which will cause a lot of civilian casualties. However, Lieutenant General Spee didn't care. He'd done that way back in England. Under his command, the German fleet blew Edinburgh almost into ruins. This kind of thing is just doing it all over again. It's just that the British who were killed before maybe the islanders this time. Hopefully, this time the island navy will have the courage to fight us. Lieutenant General Spee said. General, do the islanders really have the guts? I don't think so. Our fleet is much stronger than the islanders. I doubt if they will run away or hide in the port and dare not go to sea to fight. Rear Admiral Mao Fu, Chief of Staff of the Expedition Fleet, said with a smile. Lieutenant General Spee nodded. It is true that we have only sent 9 battle cruisers and there are no armored cruisers yet. But our combat effectiveness is definitely much stronger than that of the island navy. This time, it is indeed a bit of an attack on the island navy. So bullying. Yes. But who made the islanders so bold this time and dared to provoke the Empire? Therefore, they must pay the price for their stupid behavior. Major General Mao Fu looked sure of victory. The German Navy has dispatched a huge fleet to the Far East. Almost everyone knows that Germany is preparing to attack the island country. When the island nation blatantly attacked Southeast Asia, all countries had already guessed this. They are very clear that according to the German Code of Conduct, the islanders will never be bypassed. Of course, many countries are looking forward to the islanders being able to show their power this time, defeating the German expeditionary fleet, just as they defeated the Russian Navy 10 years ago. In this case, the Germans can suffer a big loss. Britain, which is fighting Germany, the United States on the other side of the ocean, France, the Kingdom of Italy, which lost the war, and Germany's ally, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, are almost all based on this idea. The British hope that the German Navy will suffer a disastrous defeat in the Far East, so that the Germans will definitely retaliate against the island country frantically. And once the Germans do this, the life of the British will undoubtedly be much easier. The Americans also hope to use the hands of the islanders to weaken Germany's strength. In this way, their own safety can be guaranteed. Although, the US Navy's large-scale shipbuilding program has already begun. However, building a battleship is not a joke. It takes a lot of time. If Germany can focus its main energy on the island countries, it will have no time to manage them. In this way, the United States can expand its armaments in an orderly manner. In order to strengthen the island country's determination to resist, the US government even instructed the ambassador stationed in the island country to propose to the island country government that the US government is willing to provide intelligence assistance to the island country. The French and Italians were purely because they lost the war, and at the same time they were severely extorted by Germany, which caused them heavy losses. This makes them eager to see the Germans being unlucky, and it can be regarded as revenge for themselves. As for whether the island people have this ability, or whether the island country is not a good thing, this is not what they consider. Although the Austro-Hungarian Empire is an ally of Germany, this relationship has not changed because of the previous gap. However, their relationship is not what it used to be. When Austrian Emperor Franz Joseph I was unable to handle state affairs, Crown Prince Karol had become the veritable ruler of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Crown Prince Karol was already full of hatred for Qin Tian and the German Empire. They naturally hope that the German Empire will suffer a big somersault. If the German Navy's expeditionary fleet loses this war, it is estimated that Crown Prince Karol will be excited to hold a meeting in the palace to celebrate the German Navy's loss of the war. Other countries in the world are also watching with cold eyes. However, there are not a few countries that hope that Germany will lose. After all, if there were no accidents, there would be almost no doubt about Germany's victory in this world war. Countries are unwilling to see the rise of a country stronger than the former British Empire. This is not a good thing for other countries. Their interests will also be threatened as a result. If Germany loses in this expedition, it will prove that Germany is not as powerful as in the legend. Countries will not be so afraid of Germany. It is not so easy for Germany to dominate the world. Chapter 706. Facing the Great Enemy. The German Navy sent an expeditionary fleet to the Far East to conquer the island nation. The island nation is naturally the one that pays the most attention to this matter. Although they had already expected that Germany would never let it go when they sent troops to attack the colonies in Southeast Asia. However, after learning that Germany had dispatched an expeditionary fleet, I still felt a little drummed in my heart. The strength of the island nation's navy is too weak, and they simply cannot resist the German Navy's expeditionary fleet. When the German naval expedition fleet entered the Mediterranean through the Strait of Gibraltar, all the warships of the British Navy in the Mediterranean fled into the port. At the same time, all the coastal defense guns of the Gibraltar fortress have entered a state of emergency combat readiness, for fear that the German Navy expeditionary fleet will take this opportunity to attack Gibraltar. Fortunately, the German naval expedition fleet simply wasted time in Gibraltar, which made the defenders of the Gibraltar fortress heave a sigh of relief. Although the strategic location of the Gibraltar fortress is very important, the German military believes that, as long as the British mainland is captured, the Gibraltar fortress will be easily captured. Now the task of the expeditionary fleet is to attack the island country. There is no need to waste time in Gibraltar. The news that the German Navy entered the Mediterranean through the Strait of Gibraltar was also informed by the British through secret channels to the islanders. Although the island country abolished the alliance treaty, abandoned the alliance between the two countries, and even brazenly sent troops to attack the British colonies in Southeast Asia. This makes the two countries actually at war. However, the British seem to have completely forgotten this point, and selflessly informed the islanders of the information about the German Navy's expeditionary fleet. The purpose of their doing this is nothing more than wanting to use the islanders to weaken the strength of the Germans, and no matter how bad it is, they will let the islanders hold back part of the German troops. In this case, the pressure on the British mainland will be less. After passing through the Mediterranean Sea, the German Navy Expeditionary Force will enter the Suez Canal. The current canal is still under the control of the British. However, in the face of the huge German naval expedition fleet, the British army stationed in Egypt did not dare to confront it at all. They were also afraid that the German Navy's expeditionary fleet would attack Egypt. When the mainland was about to be attacked, Britain had already withdrawn all its troops distributed all over the world back to the country. There are not many troops stationed in Egypt. If the German Navy expeditionary fleet does not come to trouble them, they will thank God for blessing. If you take the initiative to find trouble with the Germans, isn't that a dead end? The British, Americans, and even the French are constantly notifying the islanders of the news about the German Naval Expeditionary Fleet, so that the German Naval Expeditionary Fleet has just entered the Indian Ocean, and the islanders have fully understood the relevant news of the German Naval Expeditionary Fleet up. July 15th, Tokyo, the capital of the island nation, Ministry of the Navy. Admiral Yatsushiro Rokuro, Minister of the Navy, Admiral Hayao Shimamura, Commander of the Navy, and General Ichun Goro, Commander of the Combined Fleet, gathered in Admiral Yatsushiro Rokuro's office. The three of them are the three officers of the Navy of the island country, and they can be regarded as the leaders of the Navy on the surface. In fact, Gonbo Yamamoto, the father of the Navy, and Marshal Togo Hiachiro, who commanded the island nation's navy, to win that Tsushima naval battle, are the souls of the island nation's navy. The combined information from the British, Americans and French has confirmed the information of the German Navy Expeditionary Fleet. The German Navy Expeditionary Fleet consists of 9 battle cruisers, 10 light cruisers and 27 destroyers. There are quite a few transport ships. I have to admit that they are very powerful. Just dispatching a fleet mainly composed of battle cruisers are much stronger than our entire navy, Admiral Yoshiro Rakuro said. Yeah. Among the 9 German battle cruisers, the 3 Mackensen class battle cruisers are known as the most powerful battle cruisers in the world, equipped with 3 triple mounted 50 caliber 380mm the main guns. The 3 Der Flieger class battle cruisers are also equipped with 3 triple mounted 380mm main guns with a caliber of 50 times. The 3 Molt class battle cruisers are equipped with 3 triple mounted equipped with 50 times the caliber of 343mm main guns. Any battleship in active service in the Imperial Navy cannot withstand the main guns on these German battle cruisers. Even the 356mm main guns of the Imperial Navy's King Khan class battle cruisers, the performance of the gun is comparable to the 50 caliber 343mm main gun of the German Navy's Molt class battle cruiser, not to mention the more powerful 380mm main gun. Admiral Hayao Shimamura sighed, take a breath. Just the data on paper is enough to make the Navy of the island country desperate for it. Although the Navy of the island country can be regarded as the world's #1 in East Asia, however, in front of the real world naval power, it seems not enough. Not to mention, the German Navy is the new maritime overlord who has beaten the British Navy to the ground. This naturally puts unbearable pressure on the Navy of the island country. It would be great if the Imperial Navy also had those powerful warships. We can even fight for hegemony in the Pacific Ocean, said Admiral Ijun Goro. His eyes were full of envy and jealousy. Western powers can build capital ships like crazy, but the island country can't do it. The 2 Fuso class battleships built by itself are still under construction. If you want to serve, it will take a while. The subsequent warship manufacturing plan also depends on the financial situation. This made General Ijun Goro worried. The empire has only developed for a few decades since the Meiji Restoration. It is already very good to have such achievements. Which of the European powers has not developed for hundreds of years? If we are given such a long time, I believe that the empire can definitely become a real world-class power, and it will not just barely rank among the world's powers like it is now. General Yatsushiro Rakuro said. These islanders are still very proud that the island country has become one of the world's powerful countries in just a few decades. After all, they are the only Eastern country among the great powers. All other Eastern countries have become colonies of great powers. That's right. It's not easy for the empire to achieve what it is today. Therefore, we must do our best to win this battle. Otherwise, once the empire loses this war, the consequences can be imagined, General Hayao Shimamura said. General Yatsushiro Rakuro and General Ijun Goro nodded again and again. They both knew what it would mean to the island country if they lost. Chapter 707, Countermeasures. The reason why the island country is so powerful now is entirely based on the victory of the 2 wars. The victory of the 2 wars that used the island nation's national operations as a bet gave the island nation a huge war dividend. However, if this war is lost, it is conceivable that the rise of the island country will be completely interrupted. Even, they will decline again and become the objects of enslavement by Western powers. Therefore, these military generals and politicians of the island country are absolutely unwilling to lose the island country in this war. Although, in this war, the island country also use national luck to block it. However, they hope to win, so that the whole of Southeast Asia can be included in their rule. As a result, the island nation will once again get a chance to take off. No matter what, we must win this battle. Admiral Yatsushiro Rakuro said. Yes, this battle must be won. Admiral Hayao Shimamura also said. However, the Navy may not be able to fight against the German Navy. Even if the combined fleet tries its best, it will not be their opponent. Admiral Ijun Goro was a little worried. The status quo of the Navy is like this. The cabinet can't let us commit suicide. After the German Navy's expeditionary fleet arrives, we will hide in the naval port, and the Germans will have nothing to do with us. Admiral Hayao Shimamura suggested. Well, this is a good way. Or we can sneak attack on the transport ships of the Germans. When people come all the way, if something goes wrong with the transport ships, the consequences will be quite serious. Maybe there will be no fuel and shells the Germans with food, water, and water may also surrender to us. In this case, the Imperial Navy can not only win a big victory, but can even use this opportunity to further strengthen our strength. Those battle lines of the Germans' cruisers are all powerful battleships with excellent performance. Admiral Yatsushiro Rakuro said excitedly, as if the tactic they were considering would definitely succeed. Admiral Ijun Goro also had bright eyes. If the 9 battle cruisers of the German Navy can be captured, this will make the island nation's navy a powerful navy second only to the German Navy. With the strength of the US Navy severely damaged, they can even dominate the Pacific Ocean. Thinking of this, General Ijun Goro was so excited that he couldn't help himself. Report. Your Excellency General, Your Excellency Prime Minister, please go to the Prime Minister's office immediately for a meeting. The secretary reported. Well, go and prepare the car. I will go right away. General Yatsushiro Rakuro nodded. Yes, Your Excellency General. The secretary left immediately to get ready. It's probably a discussion about how to deal with the Germans. Yashiro-kun, no matter what, the Navy can't fight the Germans head on. In that case, we have no chance of winning. We can only save our strength and sneak attack the German transport ships. Like this only then will there be a chance of winning. The Navy finally got its current scale, and we can't let the horse dung of the army kill us. General Ijun Goro said. General Yatsushiro Rakuro nodded. Don't worry, I know what to do. When General Yatsushiro Rakuro arrived at the Prime Minister's office, the other 4 of the 5 cabinet ministers had already arrived. At the same time, General Yoshimichi Hasegawa, Chief of Staff of the Army, also attended this meeting. Yatsushiro-kun, I'm waiting for you. Prime Minister Shigenobu Akuma said. Hi, I'm sorry, Your Excellency Prime Minister, I'm late for my humble post. Admiral Yatsushiro Rakuro immediately apologized. No, you're not late, it's still early. It's just that everyone arrived early, so let's start the meeting early. Akuma Shigenobu said. Hi. General Yatsushiro Rakuro nodded. Everyone, according to the information we have received so far, the German expeditionary fleet has entered the Indian Ocean. It is estimated that in half a month, it will arrive in Southeast Asia. It will not be long before it will directly arrive in the sea near the Empire. The German expeditionary fleet is menacing. How should the Empire respond this time? Shigenobu Akuma asked. All eyes fell on General Yatsushiro Rakuro. After all, this time the Germans sent the Navy. Then, naturally, it is up to the Navy to deal with it. Your Excellency Prime Minister, we have already analyzed the strength of the German Navy's expeditionary fleet. We have to admit that the German Navy's expeditionary fleet is very powerful, far above the Imperial Navy. Even if the Imperial Navy is all added up, it is not the German Navy's expeditionary fleet the opponent. If you fight the German Navy expeditionary fleet head on, the Imperial Navy will undoubtedly lose. Admiral Yoshiro Rakuro said. Although admitting that it is not as good as the German Navy expeditionary fleet, it seems a bit too embarrassing. But now is not the time to be a hero. The most important thing is to preserve the strength of the Navy as much as possible. Cowards. Don't you even have the courage to fight against the German Navy's expeditionary fleet? Lu Xiangang Ichinasuk sneered. Knowing that the enemy is powerful, it is the behavior of a reckless person to hit a stone with an egg. Only you army horse dung will do that. General Yatsushiro Rakuro countered. Suddenly, Oka Ichinasuk and Yatsushiro Rakuro seemed to be about to start a fierce quarrel again. Okay, you all be quiet, Akuma Shigenobu said angrily. Oka Ichinasuk and Yatsushiro Rakuro stopped. You are all important ministers of the Empire. Now it is the most critical moment for the Empire. If you have the strength to argue here, you might as well think about how to deal with the Germans. The Germans are coming aggressively this time. If they cannot be defeated, the consequences will be very serious, said Akuma Shigenobu. Your Excellency, the army is ready for battle. We have sent 10 additional divisions and more than 200,000 people to Southeast Asia. If the Germans dare to come, we can definitely defeat them and let them know the Imperial Army's strength. Great. But it's a pity that the Germans only sent the navy this time, not the army at all. Okarichinasuk looked disappointed. It seems that the Germans are still focusing their energy on the war against the British mainland. Therefore, they did not send the army. However, the strength of the Germans is still strong, and we cannot underestimate it. Foreign Minister Takaki Kato also said, Yatsushiro-kun, is there really no way for the navy to deal with the German expeditionary fleet? As long as the Imperial Navy can defeat the German Navy without the Germans dispatching an army, we will win. Ryujiro Wakatsuki looked expectantly. General Yadarakuro, if you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 708, Avoid War. The 9 battle cruisers of the German Navy Expeditionary Fleet can be called the most powerful battle cruisers in the world, especially the 3 Mackensen class battle cruisers and the 3 Derfliner class battle cruisers. The cruisers are all equipped with 380mm main guns with 50 times their caliber. None of our battleships can fight against their powerful firepower. Even the main guns of our battleships, even the armor of these German battle cruisers, they can't even penetrate them. Under such circumstances, how can we fight against them? It's not because the Imperial Navy fears the enemy and avoids fighting, but because the German Navy's expeditionary fleet is too powerful, and the strength gap between the two sides is too great. If we confront the German Navy head-on, if the expeditionary fleet confronts, it is no different from seeking death. We cannot let the officers and soldiers of the Imperial Navy die in vain. Admiral Yatsushiro Rakuro said. HMPH. A coward is a coward. What's the use of sophistry? Admiral Okarichinasuk whispered. But there are only a few of them in the conference room. Even if General Okarichinasuk speaks in a low voice, General Yatsushiro Rakuro can still hear clearly. This groundless accusation by Okarichinasuk made Yashiro Rakuro furious. If the death of the Navy officers and soldiers can help the Empire win this war, we will die without hesitation. I'm willing to be the first one. However, it is a pity that, even if we all die in battle, we will not hesitate to die. We can't beat the German Navy's expeditionary fleet. Therefore, we need to keep our useful bodies in order to defeat the Germans in the future. Yashiro Rakuro looked sad and indignant. Okarichinasuk wanted to make a sarcasm, but was stopped by Akuma Shigenobu. The war is about to begin, and Shigenobu Akuma does not want the army and navy to be in trouble. In that case, how can this battle continue? I'm afraid that before the battle even started, they themselves would start fighting among themselves. Yatsushiro-kun, how does the navy think? Akuma Shigenobu asked. Your Excellency, in view of the fact that the strength of the Imperial Navy is far inferior to that of the German Navy Expeditionary Fleet. Therefore, the Imperial Navy plans to avoid direct confrontation with the German Navy Expeditionary Fleet after it arrives, and use coastal fortifications to confront it. If there is a suitable opportunity, the Imperial Navy will dispatch warships to attack the German Navy's logistics supply ships. The German Navy's expeditionary fleet traveled thousands of miles to conquer the island country, and all logistical supplies depend on a few supply ships. If those supply ships are sunk by us, the German Navy will soon be in a situation where there is no fuel, no food, no shells or even clean water. At that time, the Imperial Navy can fully seize this opportunity and capture these warships of the German Navy Expeditionary Fleet. In this way, the Imperial Navy can not only get victory, on the contrary, we can seize this opportunity to further strengthen our strength. Yashiro Rakuro said. The important ministers of the island nation present all stared wide-eyed. They did not expect that the Navy would actually have such an idea. If the Navy's plan can be successful, then they can win. Moreover, the Navy of the island country can also add a few powerful battleships because of this, which is simply killing 2 birds with 1 stone. HMPH. Are the Germans stupid? Once their logistics supply ships are attacked, they will definitely retreat. Besides, the Germans will not be so stupid as not to send warships to protect those logistics supply ships. Okashinosuke snorted coldly. It is true that it is very difficult to complete this plan. However, this is already the best battle plan we can think of. Yatsushiro Rakuro did not become angry because of Okashinosuke's doubts. This plan is indeed very good. Although I'm not a soldier, I also know that, if it can be successful, it will be of great benefit to the empire. Foreign Minister Takaki Kato said. Akuma Shigenobu nodded. Since the navy already has a plan, let's proceed according to the navy's plan. This time, the Germans did not send the army, which is a good thing for us. We can have more its time to prepare. The army will strengthen its defense in Southeast Asia from now on, and at the same time plunder as much resources as possible. The navy will send transport ships to help the army transport more war materials to Southeast Asia, and at the same time, the army will find those resources are transported back to the mainland empire now needs to seize every minute and use the resources in Southeast Asia to make the empire stronger. Hi, Your Excellency the Prime Minister. Yatsushiro Rakuro and Okashinosuke replied immediately. My lords, the empire has reached the most critical moment. This battle is related to the fate of the empire. We have already used the state of the empire as a bet. Therefore, we have no other choice. If we win, the empire will soaring into the sky, becoming stronger and becoming one of the real world powers. And if it fails, needless to say, everyone should know what the consequences will be. Therefore, we must do our best to win. Akuma Shigenobu looked solemn. Hey, the empire will win. The important ministers of the island nation looked enthusiastic. They all believe that in the next battle, their chances of winning are still very high. While the land and navy of the island country were preparing for the battle, the German Navy Expeditionary Fleet was crossing the Indian Ocean. The long-distance voyage is undoubtedly a great test for the officers and soldiers of the German Navy. Fortunately, the supply preparations of the Imperial Navy were adequate, so that the Imperial Navy basically had no problems during the long-distance voyage. The speed of the fleet is not fast, and it has been cruising. And it will stop from time to time to perform simple maintenance on the battleship. It would be best if a port could be found for maintenance before the battle. In that case, all warships can be brought into full play. But unfortunately, Germany now does not have a single military port in the Indian Ocean or even the entire Far East. Therefore, in this naval battle, the strength of their warships could not be fully utilized. There is no way around this. The Russians suffered such a big loss back then. But even so, Lieutenant General Spee, who was in charge of commanding the expeditionary fleet, was still full of confidence in defeating the island navy. Even if the performance of these warships of the Imperial Navy cannot be maximized, their combat effectiveness is definitely higher than that of the island nation's navy. On July 27th, the German Navy Expeditionary Fleet entered the South China Sea. However, not even a warship or merchant ship from an island country was encountered. Lieutenant Admiral Spee immediately issued an order for the fleet to go north. Since no navy or merchant ships of the island country were found, they would go directly to the offshore waters of the island country. In that case, the islanders will naturally have no way to retreat. Chapter 709, Force. General, it seems that the islanders are determined to avoid fighting us. I thought that this battle could be easily won. But now it seems that it is not so easy. On the flagship of the German Navy Expeditionary Fleet on the battle cruiser Mackensen, Rear Admiral Maufu, the chief of staff of the fleet, looked worried. This doesn't look like the fighting style of the islanders. Originally, I thought that the navy of the islands would fight to the death just like their army. In that case, we could rely on our superiority in combat power to easily give them its resolved. Now, the islanders are avoiding the fight. In that case, we have no choice but to take extreme measures to force the islanders out to fight us. Lieutenant General Spee said. Although Lieutenant General Spee was unwilling to give cold-blooded orders. But, for the good of the empire, for the sake of winning this battle, he had to do it. Everything is to blame only for the islanders, to seek their own death. All this is of their own making, General, there is no way around it. His Majesty the Emperor hopes that we can win. At present, it is impossible for us to send troops to fight in Southeast Asia on a large scale. so we can only use this method to force the islanders and let them spit out Southeast Asia," Major General Mao Fu said. Lieutenant General Shi Pei nodded. "For the sake of the empire, I will not hesitate, even if I bear infamy. Order the fleet. From now on, as long as they encounter island ships, whether they are warships or merchant ships, they will all be sunk without leaving a single one. Since they are hiding and dare not fight us, we will kill them until they have to go to sea and fight with us. Let's fight till the end," Lieutenant General Spei ordered. "Yes, General." Rear Admiral Mao Fu immediately conveyed Lieutenant General Spei's order to every warship. The menacing German Navy Expeditionary Force rushed to the mainland of the island country. The island country has always been well aware of the whereabouts of the German Navy Expeditionary Fleet. Around the German Navy Expeditionary Force, there are always merchant ships from neutral countries. Although the expeditionary forces knew that these merchant ships were likely to reveal their whereabouts to the islanders, they had no choice. With Germany about to win the war, they couldn't just attack the merchant ships of neutral countries casually. On the afternoon of August 4th, the German Navy Expedition Fleet had arrived in the waters east of Okinawa. Report to the General. Destroyer V-29 found an island merchant ship about 30 kilometers away from us. Major General Mao Fu reported. "Let the destroyer V-29 get rid of that merchant ship." Lieutenant General Spei gave the order indifferently. "Yes, General." Major General Mao Fu nodded. When the order was issued, the destroyer V-29 did not hesitate, and 388mm naval guns immediately launched an attack on the merchant ships of the island country. Boom. 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 The 3 naval guns poured shells at the merchant ships of the island country at the maximum rate of fire, and the terrifying rain of bullets enveloped the merchant ships of the island country. Bagger. The Germans opened fire. "Damn it, we are merchant ships. How shameless they dare to directly attack merchant ships." On the merchant ship, an island nation cursed loudly. "Sir, what should we do now?" The merchant ship was unarmed, and there was no way to fight back in front of the warship. "Turn immediately and report to the country the position of the German fleet." "Hi, sir. Actually, this is not a real merchant ship, but a reconnaissance ship disguised as a merchant ship. The purpose is to grasp the whereabouts of the German Navy." But who knew? The German Navy actually fired directly at these merchant ships. Boom. 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 Although the power of the 88mm artillery shell is not very good, it still poses a deadly threat to the merchant ships of island countries that are almost made of wood. The shell easily penetrated the bulkhead of the merchant ship and exploded. After the explosion, the merchant ship began to burn. Just a few minutes later, the merchant ship was sunk by a destroyer of the German Navy. During the next 2 days, the way the German Naval Expeditionary Fleet dealt with the merchant ships and fishing boats of the island countries was still to sink them directly, without giving any chance of survival. In this way, the intelligence personnel of the island nation who attempted to investigate the situation by disguising themselves as merchant ships suffered heavy losses. On the night of August 6th, with the help of the cover of night, the German Navy Expeditionary Fleet conducted a replenishment. Each battleship is filled with fuel, shells, food, and water to ensure that the battleship can fight continuously for several days. When the replenishment was completed, Lieutenant General Spei ordered the supply fleet to evacuate. The fleet will soon enter the offshore waters of the island country, and the next battle will be very cruel. If the supply fleet follows, it will be very easy to encounter danger. After all, almost all of these supply ships were refitted from merchant ships, and they did not have strong combat effectiveness or even defensive capabilities. Once attacked in a naval battle, the consequences will be very serious. In order to ensure the safety of the supply fleet, Lieutenant General Spei specially dispatched 2 light cruisers and 6 destroyers to protect the supply fleet. The safety of the supply fleet is directly related to the life and death of the fleet. Once the supply fleet is attacked, the other main warships will lose their supplies. In this case, they will not be able to survive back home just relying on the supplies on the battleship. At that time, the fleet will be doomed. Lieutenant General Spei asked the supply fleet to cruise in the Pacific Ocean and wait for the flagship's order. After the flagship gave the order, he came to join the fleet and provide supplies for the fleet. Although such an arrangement cannot be said to be foolproof, the possibility of problems is undoubtedly very small. If under such circumstances, the supply fleet has been attacked, then it can only be said that the luck of the German Navy Expeditionary Fleet is too bad. Of course, the 2 light cruisers and 6 destroyers that provide security protection for the supply fleet also have certain combat power. As long as it is not besieged by the enemy's main fleet, it can still survive. May God bless them. Watching the supply fleet leave, Lieutenant General Speddy couldn't help but pray to God, General, although this is the East, God will still bless us. Tomorrow, we will enter the offshore waters of the island country. I believe that we will encounter many ships from the island country. At that time, we will attack these island country ships. We will definitely be able to force the navy of the island country to come out and fight us decisively. Major General Mauthu seemed a little optimistic. Lieutenant General Spee nodded. If this can force the island nation's navy to come out for a decisive battle, that would be great. Otherwise, I can only order an attack on the island nation's coastal cities. Chapter 710. Massacre. Island State Tokyo, Ministry of the Navy. Even though it was late at night, the place was still brightly lit at this moment. The 3 officers of the Navy all gathered here to analyze the battle situation and then make a decision based on the intelligence gathered and analyzed by the staff officers. Although, in this battle, the Navy of the island country adopted a tactic to avoid a decisive battle with the German Navy Expeditionary Fleet. However, they regard the supply fleet attacking the expedition fleet as the first target. If they can succeed, they may be able to change the situation on the battlefield in one fell swoop and allow them to win an unprecedented victory. The Germans shamelessly launched an attack on our merchant ships. Now, it is difficult for us to know their whereabouts. However, it is inferred that they will arrive in Kyushu soon. Admiral Ijungoro said. Yes. Who said that Europeans would not attack civilians during the war? Didn't these Germans spare even one of our merchant ships? So far, more than 10 merchant ships have been sunk. Yes, our intelligence personnel have suffered heavy losses. Admiral Hayao Shimamura said. The loss of a dozen merchant ships is not a big deal. What I'm worried about is that once the Imperial Expeditionary Fleet breaks into our coastal waters, it will be a disaster. All merchant ships must be avoided as much as possible from encountering the German Expeditionary Fleet. Otherwise, the consequences will be serious. General Yatsushiro Rokuro looked worried. Island countries also rely heavily on sea transportation. In addition, their land area is small and there is not much land available for cultivation, so they have to ask for food from the sea. This also makes their fishing boats a lot. Once the German Naval Expeditionary Fleet also attacks these merchant ships and fishing boats, the losses caused to the island countries will be immeasurable. Damn. We should condemn the Germans to the international community for attacking civilians. Admiral Hayao Shimamura said. That's useless at all. The Germans are now the most powerful country in the world. Will those countries risk offending the Germans and accuse them? Besides, such accusations are useless. If the Germans still go their own way, no one can do anything about them. What's more, we have launched an attack on Southeast Asia, which has caused an uproar in Germany. The vast majority of Germans think that we are stealing the fruits of their victory and demand that we be punished, one wave after another. Even if the German Naval Expeditionary Fleet attacks merchant ships, the Germans will turn a blind eye. If this is the case, this method will be useless at all. Admiral Ijungoro also said. Since there is no other way, we can only order merchant ships and fishing boats not to leave the port as much as possible to avoid being attacked by the Germans. Yoshiro Rokuro sighed. However, after such an order is issued, it will cause panic in the country and cause great losses. The cabinet will definitely have opinions on this. General Ijungoro said. There is no other way, we can only do this. It is better than being sunk by the Germans, to sink our merchant ships and fishing boats. Yoshiro Rokuro said. Yes, if we are sunk by the Germans, then our losses will be really great. As long as we can defeat the Germans, then all losses can be recovered. Admiral Hayao Shimamura said. That night, the Ministry of the Navy of the island country asked the cabinet to issue an order requiring merchant ships and fishing boats of the entire island country not to leave the port to avoid being attacked by the Germans. However, not many islanders obey this order. Of course, they knew that once they went to sea and encountered Germans, they would probably die. But if you don't go to sea, the loss will be even greater. Especially those fishermen, they are still waiting to sell the money, to buy rice, after they catch the fish. On the morning of August 6th, when the sun rose from the sea, the German Navy expedition fleet had arrived in the southern waters of Kyushu Island. This is a very busy shipping route, the route from the island country to China and Southeast Asia. The metropolis passes here. Although the island's cabinet issued an order overnight last night to prohibit merchant ships from going to sea, there are still many domestic merchant ships in this sea area at the moment. Especially those merchant ships returning to the island country from Southeast Asia and China did not receive orders at all. General, the merchant ship of the islanders, Rear Admiral Mao Fu said excitedly, order the fleet to launch an attack. Let the destroyers do it. The shells of battleships are too expensive, and it's a little bit less. Lieutenant General Spee gave the order expressionlessly. 21 destroyers, after receiving the order, immediately rushed towards the merchant ships of those island countries. Although, some German Navy soldiers complained about attacking merchant ships. However, in the army, carrying out orders from superiors is the top priority. Therefore, they can only bite the bullet and launch an attack. Boom. 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 The latest batch of destroyers of the German Navy have 388mm naval guns as their main guns. Although the power of this kind of naval gun is not great, its rate of fire is astonishing, and it can fire more than 10 shells per minute. It poses a great threat against light warships. It is even easier to deal with civilian ships. Bagger. What's going on? We are merchant ships. What do those German warships want to do? On an island merchant ship, the captain was roaring angrily. They are merchant ships traveling between Southeast Asia and island countries. The boat is full of rice. After the island army occupied Southeast Asia, they harvested a lot of rice, a specialty product, and shipped it back to China to ease the food shortage in the country. Captain, they fired. An islander said in horror. Boom. 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 The sound of shelling sounded in this sea area, and the shells one after another easily tore apart the wooden hull of the merchant ship of the island country and destroyed it. Amaterasu. Those Germans actually launched an attack on the merchant ship. Please save us. At this time, the island nations realized the crisis, and they helplessly prayed to the god they believed in, Amaterasu, for help. However, it was of no use at all. One after another, island merchant ships were hit, caught fire, and then sank into the sea in the middle of the fire. Countless islanders jumped into the sea from merchant ships. However, it is dozens of kilometers away from the coast. It is almost impossible for them to survive. Lieutenant General Spee indifferently issued an order not to rescue these islanders, and they had to hurry up and continue northward to attack more island merchant ships and fishing boats. If under such circumstances, the navy of the island country does not go to sea for a decisive battle, then they will have to take more drastic measures. In order to win, the German Navy Expeditionary Fleet intends to do everything this time. Chapter 711, Pressing Alexander. In just half an hour, the sea was full of broken planks and island sailors who fell into the sea. Under the attack of the destroyers of the German Navy Expeditionary Fleet, those merchant ships were unlucky, and were all sunk, and none of them escaped. General, it's over. Major General Mao Fu reported to Lieutenant General Spee. While the destroyers of the German Navy Expeditionary Fleet slaughtered the merchant ships of these island countries, Lieutenant General Spee has been watching coldly. His heart seemed to have turned into a heart of stone. Command the fleet to continue northward, and we will fight all the way to Tokyo. Lieutenant General Spee ordered. He wants to use this method to force the navy of the island country to leave the port for a decisive battle. Yes, General. Major General Mao Fu nodded. Subsequently, the German Naval Expeditionary Fleet continued north along the coastline of the island country, and all the merchant ships and fishing boats found along the way were also sunk. After the fleet circled the Bungo Channel, they did not enter the Seto Inland Sea, but headed north along Tosa Bay. Although the Seto Inland Sea is the industrial and economic center of the island country, shipping is well developed. However, the sea area there is narrow and the water depth is relatively shallow. The navy of the island country can easily lay traps with mines in it. If you are not careful, the German Naval Expedition Fleet will pay a heavy price there. Therefore, Lieutenant General Spey, who is familiar with the situation in the Far East Sea, resisted the temptation to break into the Seto Inland Sea and massacre, and went directly north. Anyway, he has already made up his mind. If the navy of the island country continues to be a turtle, he will order the bombardment of the coastal cities of the island country, causing unimaginable losses to the island country. What should I do? What should I do now? Damn the Germans, they are so barbaric. In the past few days, they have sunk more than 100 merchant ships and fishing boats. The cabinet has become a mess, it's gone. Admiral Yatsuhiro Rakuro, Minister of the Navy of the island country, was dejected. The Germans' trick is really vicious. They did this clearly, to force us to fight them. If we go to sea to fight them, it will be in their hands. Admiral Hayao Shimamura said. However, how should the cabinet respond? That guy Okashinosuke jumped up and down, wanting us to fight the Germans. Those guys in the army, if they don't drive us to death, they won't let it go. Don't they know, if the navy was wiped out by the Germans, isn't it good for the empire? General Ijon Goro said with a dark face. The actions of the German Navy's expeditionary fleet put him, the commander of the joint fleet, under great pressure. No matter what, we can't go to sea to fight the Germans. In that case, it will be quite disadvantageous to us. Our current strength is simply not enough to fight against them. If we fight rashly, we will lose ugly. Shimamura General Xiong said. Yes, if the United Fleet and the German Navy's expeditionary fleet are in a decisive battle, we have no chance of winning. There is only one result, and that is to be completely wiped out by the German expeditionary fleet. Admiral Ijon Goro looked very pessimistic. There is no way. How can there be a chance of winning when the performance of one's own warship is far inferior to that of the opponent, and the quality of officers and soldiers is far inferior to the opponent? Well, I will try my best to deal with them on the cabinet side. It is really impossible, so I can only let merchant ships and fishing boats try not to go to sea. Damn the Germans, one day we will make them pay the price. Admiral Yatsuhiro Rakuro cursed. Facing the massacre of the German Naval Expeditionary Fleet, the island country had no choice but to order merchant ships and fishing boats to stay in port as much as possible, not to go to sea. However, merchant ships can stay in the port for shelter, but what about fishing boats? If those fishermen don't fish, the family can only drink northwest wind. The German Navy traveled north along the coastline of the island country, sinking countless merchant ships and fishing boats from the island country. This also makes the coastal areas of the island country jittery, and the vegetation is full of soldiers. Some wealthy people even fled directly to the countryside for refuge. Angry people surrounded the cabinet in the Ministry of the Navy, accusing them of letting the Germans slaughter their want only, while the government and navy remained silent and did not dare to resist. This has put the island government and navy under a lot of pressure. Even those middle and lower level officers are very dissatisfied with this. You know, the island nation has always had a tradition of lowering the upper limit. These angry people seem to have forgotten how happy they were when the island country expanded its territory in the east, as if a good day is coming soon. But it's a pity that they haven't enjoyed the good life yet, but the disaster came first. Yachide-kun, listen to how angry the people outside are. If this continues, I'm afraid they will rush into the Prime Minister's office soon. At that time, I will not only apologize to His Majesty the Emperor, but also ask for my resignation. There is no other way at all. Prime Minister Akuma Shigenobu's face was livid. General Yatsuhiro Rakuro's face was also very ugly. He could clearly hear those guys outside shouting heavenly execution asterisk asterisk asterisk. These people who are dedicated to serving the country have actually become prostitutes. This is simply the greatest mystery in the world. Your Excellency, the Germans did this to force us to go to sea to fight. The United Fleet has no chance of winning at all. If we go to sea to fight the Germans, we will lose very ugly. Even the United Fleet has the entire army the danger of being overwhelmed. Once the combined fleet is severely damaged, or even wiped out, our efforts over the years will be in vain. Without the support of the Navy, the army can only defend the homeland. Admiral Yatsuhiro Rakuro reminded. Yatsuhiro-kun, I know what you said, and I can understand everything. However, the pressure from the government is really great now. Akuma Shigenobu sighed. He is not a short-sighted person, so he naturally knows what to do. It's just that the huge pressure now makes him a little bit battered. Your Excellency, for the future of the Empire, please bear with me. Admiral Yatsushiro Rokuro bowed heavily to Akuma Shigenobu. Akuma Shigenobu nodded. Okay, Yatsushiro-kun, I will try my best to appease the people. However, you also have to actively think of a way. If the situation worsens further, the consequences will be very serious. I'm afraid I can't suppress it. How long will you stay? The Germans are coming to Tokyo, and we don't have much time left. Hi, Your Excellency the Prime Minister. General Yatsushiro Rokuro nodded. Chapter 712. Battleship bombards the city. Gentlemen, Your Excellency, the Prime Minister, is under great pressure. If the Germans continue to slaughter so recklessly, Your Excellency, the Prime Minister, will not be able to bear the pressure. Therefore, we have no other choice. We must defeat the Germans as soon as possible. After returning to the Ministry of the Navy, Admiral Yatsushiro Rokuro's face was very ugly. Our reconnaissance ship found that the German transport fleet was not accompanying. It can be seen that their transport fleet did not accompany the fleet. Now, we just don't know where the German transport fleet is. The sea is so big, it is not so easy to find the German transport fleet. Admiral Hayao Shimamura said, think of a way to organize another batch of scout ships to see if you can find the German transport fleet. As long as their transport fleet is found, immediately send the fleet to attack. As long as the German transport fleet is killed, their fleet it won't work if you don't leave. General Igi Goro said, I hope God Amaterasu can bless us and discover the German transport fleet earlier. Admiral Yashiro Rokuro sighed. The navy of the island country now completely pins its hopes of defeating the German expeditionary fleet on finding the fleet's transport fleet and defeating them by destroying the transport fleet and causing the German expeditionary fleet to lose supplies. If the navy of the island country and the German expeditionary fleet were to confront each other head-on, they would have no courage and absolutely no confidence. The German Navy expeditionary fleet, all the way north, arrived at Sagami Bay on August 10th. The Uraga waterway was originally an extremely busy waterway, but the German expeditionary fleet attacked all the way, making those merchant ships huddled in Tokyo Bay and dared not go out. The naval base in Yokosuka is even more like an enemy. All coastal defense guns were pointed at the strait. Once the German expeditionary fleet intends to enter Tokyo Bay, they will open fire immediately. Even, the navy of the island country deployed a large number of mines in the Uraga waterway overnight to prevent the German expeditionary fleet from entering Tokyo Bay. On the battlecruiser Mackensen, the flagship of the German Navy expeditionary fleet, Lieutenant General Spee and Rear Admiral Morph are discussing the next battle. General, it seems that the navy of the island country is determined to be a turtle. We have sunk so many of their merchant ships and fishing boats, and they are indifferent. Rear Admiral Mayofu said, yeah. It seems that the navy of the island country is still very wise. They know that, if they fight us decisively, they have no chance of winning. Therefore, they will adopt this method. However, they should have underestimated our determination. This time, we will never let the islanders bow their heads completely, Lieutenant General Spee said. The battle will evolve into this way. Although the German Navy expeditionary fleet has an unshakable responsibility, at the same time, the island navy is also responsible for it. If they hadn't been huddled in the port, the expedition fleet would not have targeted the coastal cities of the island country. Of course, the expeditionary fleet is suspected of massacring civilians in doing so. But in the final analysis, this is what the islanders asked for. If it weren't for their ambitious desire to seize the colonies belonging to Germany, Germany would not have sent an expeditionary fleet eastward. Therefore, all these are the islanders themselves. Give the transport fleet an order. The fleet will be replenished tonight. Tomorrow morning, launch an attack on Shizuoka and destroy it. Lieutenant General Spee ordered. Originally, Tokyo should be the best target. However, Lieutenant General Spee did not dare to venture into the Uraga waterway. The coastal defense artillery of the islanders is not a concern. But the mines there have to be guarded against. The fleet cannot take risks unless it is absolutely necessary. After all, it is far away from the mainland of Germany. If a warship is lost, it will not be replenished for a long time. Yes, General. Major General Mao Fu immediately went to make arrangements. That night, the German expeditionary fleet joined the supply fleet at a sea area 300 kilometers away from Sagami Bay. The warships of the fleet replenished fuel, shells, food, and water from the supply fleet in turn. This sequential supply is enough to support a few days of high-intensity fighting. After the supply was completed, it was already midnight. The fleet began to rush towards the first target delineated by Lieutenant General Spee. The supply fleet continued to enter the Pacific Ocean on standby. On August 11th, the sun rose as usual. When the Pacific Ocean rose from the sea, the German expeditionary fleet had once again entered Sagami Bay, and the target was directed at Shizuoka. At 7 o'clock in the morning, the expedition fleet arrived off the coast of Shizuoka. The huge German fleet arrived off the coast of Shizuoka, which greatly frightened the islanders living here. Amaterasu. Those Germans are coming. They are coming to Shizuoka. What do they want to do? Who knows? They don't want to shell Shizuoka. How is that possible? No matter how the Germans are members of a civilized society, how could they do such a thing? I heard that the Germans have been looking for a decisive battle with the Imperial Navy. But the Imperial Navy is shrinking its head and hiding in Tokyo Bay. The Germans have no choice but to vent their anger on others. Bagger. Those asterisk in the Navy. The people of the Empire tightened their belts, supported the development of the Navy, bought warships for them, and built new warships. Could it be that they can only be shrinking turtles when the enemy comes? The enemy is too strong, and Germany is now the world's most powerful country. The strength of the Navy is not as good as others, so there is no way to choose to preserve its strength. The German expeditionary fleet will not pay attention to the ideas of the islanders. They are soldiers, and their bounden duty is to obey orders. Order all ships, prepare. Lieutenant General Spee gave the order coldly. At this moment, he knew what the consequences would be after his order was issued. However, he still didn't hesitate at all. Battle cruisers one after another began to hit the horizontal hull, aiming at Shizuoka with their sights. Damn, the Germans are really going to shell Shizuoka. Run away. Once the Germans open fire, we're dead. Countless islanders began to flee in all directions. However, it is too late. If they started to retreat at the beginning, perhaps there is still a chance to escape. As for now, I'm afraid that the only way for them to be torn to pieces by shells. Fire. Lieutenant General Spee gave the order. Boom. 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 The battle cruiser Mackensen fired first, and 3 triple-mounted 380mm main guns began to roar. Heavy artillery shells roared towards Shizuoka. The other 8 battle cruisers followed closely behind and started shelling, smashing heavy shells at Shizuoka. Chapter 713. Heavy casualties. Boom. 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 The large caliber naval gun shell smashed into Shizuoka under the action of huge kinetic energy. The earth-shattering explosion sounded in the city of Shizuoka. The mighty power of the large caliber shells is directly and vividly revealed. Because of the attack on the city, the German expeditionary fleet added a special batch of high explosive bombs during the supply last night. The houses in the island country are all made of wood, and high explosive bombs can play the greatest role. Boom. Or 380mm artillery shell hit a courtyard, and the shockwave spread to all sides, directly razing the entire courtyard to the ground. The people who lived in this courtyard were killed cleanly. Run away. The Germans are firing. The islanders in Shizuoka city scattered in all directions, trying to escape here. But how can a person's legs outrun a cannonball? On the narrow streets, countless islanders are squeezing out of the city. A shell fell from the sky. After the explosion, a large area has been emptied. There were broken pieces of flesh and blood everywhere. A huge bomb crater was left on the street. Those who were lucky enough not to die groaned in pain on the ground. Damn the Germans, they are massacring civilians. Hurry up and report to Tokyo that we have been shelled by the Germans and have suffered heavy casualties. Please support. A local official ordered loudly. However, even if they report to Tokyo, it is obvious that the status quo in Shizuoka cannot be changed. By the time the rescue from Tokyo arrives, Shizuoka may have already been turned into ruins. What's more, Tokyo may not have the courage to rescue them. Boom. 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 On the sea, the 9 battleships of the German Expeditionary Fleet lined up, firing fiercely, smashing shells one after another at Shizuoka, destroying the lives there, and blowing up the city into ruins. Lieutenant General Spee stood on the bridge of the battlecruiser Mackinson, watching all this with binoculars. Although it is too far away to see clearly, however, he could clearly see that the entire city was turning into ruins bit by bit. Order all light cruisers to join the attack. We need to destroy this place in the shortest possible time. Then, go to the next target. Lieutenant General Spee ordered. Yes, General. Major General Malfu faithfully carried out Lieutenant General Spee's. After receiving the order, the 8 light cruisers immediately moved forward to a place less than 5 kilometers from the coast, and fired fiercely at Shizuoka with naval guns. Although, the naval guns of these light cruisers are all 150mm. However, for a city whose buildings are mainly wooden houses, it still has devastating power. After the 8 light cruisers joined the shooting, the speed at which Shizuoka was destroyed really accelerated a lot. My god. We are destroying a city with our own hands, and it feels so good. Killing so many people, God will send us to hell. No, we will go to heaven. Because the islanders are not human at all, they are as thin as monkeys. Besides, it was the islanders who provoked the Empire first. This time the Empire is just a passive counterattack, that's all. The sailors of the German Expeditionary Fleet were joking and firing. It can be felt that they have almost no shame. The island country seized Southeast Asia, which made the people in Germany very angry. The soldiers of the army wanted to kill all the islanders. It is precisely because of this that they have no resistance to the orders issued by Lieutenant General Spee. At this moment, Shizuoka is like hell. Houses have been blown up or are burning. The streets are covered with large and small bomb craters. Broken limbs and broken arms can be seen everywhere. The living islanders are fleeing the city. However, from time to time, shells exploded among the crowd, taking away fresh lives. Boom. Or 380mm artillery shell fell on the road out of the city west of Shizuoka. At this moment, this road is already crowded with islanders who are about to flee the city. The power of the 380mm shell is undoubtedly very amazing. At least hundreds of islanders lost their lives in the explosion of this shell, and countless people were injured. God Amaterasu. Come and save us. What sin did we do to endure such pain? An old man knelt on the ground and cried. His wife, son, daughter-in-law, and grandson all died in the explosion. Even he himself lost his legs. There was no one to treat him at all. He could only feel that his own life was passing away little by little with the blood that was constantly flowing out. For the islanders living in Shizuoka, this is undoubtedly a difficult day. The whole city burned in the explosion. German artillery shells set the wooden houses on fire. What's more terrible is that the sea breeze is very strong, making the flames fly everywhere. Soon the whole city seemed to be on fire. Many islanders who did not have time to escape from the city were buried in the sea of flames and burned directly to ashes. The shelling of the German Expeditionary Fleet lasted for 2 full hours before it ended. When they stopped shelling, Shizuoka was like a burning torch. Ash rushed into the sky along with the airflow, covering the sky and even blocking the sun's rays. Let's go to the next city. Lieutenant General Spee gave the order coldly. He knew that Shizuoka was finished. He didn't know how many islanders died in their shelling, but he knows that there will be many. However, he does not regret such an order. Who made the islanders unable to control their ambitions and dare to touch the Empire's colonies. So, they have to pay for it. Of course, Lieutenant General Shipe's heart is not peaceful. However, his good psychological quality prevented all of this from being shown. Yes, General. Major General Malfu gave the order with an ugly face. Although he told himself over and over again, those islanders deserve to die. However, there is still some unnaturalness in my heart. After receiving the order, the fleet withdrew from Shizuoka and went to the next target. The next one in Lieutenant General Spee's attack target is Hamamatsu in the south of Shizuoka, which is only a few tens of kilometers away from Shizuoka. It only takes 2 hours for the German Expeditionary Fleet to rush from Shizuoka to Hamamatsu. Lieutenant General Spee planned to destroy Hamamatsu in 2 hours, and then moved on to the next target. The third goal is Nagoya. As long as the navy of the island country does not leave port, to fight the German expeditionary fleet. They will continue to fight until all the coastal cities of the island country are completely destroyed. Chapter 714. Have to fight. Island, Tokyo, Prime Minister's office. Prime Minister Akuma Shigenobu felt an inexplicable irritability, as if something big was about to happen. The German expeditionary fleet is not far from Tokyo, which makes him very worried that the expeditionary fleet will break into Tokyo Bay. In that case, God knows what trouble will happen. I hope the guys in the Navy will guard the Uraga waterway. If the Germans break into Tokyo Bay and open fire on Tokyo, then the problem will be troublesome. Akuma Shigenobu murmured. Now he feels more and more that it is not so easy to defeat the German fleet. They thought everything was too simple before. However, even if you want to stop now, it is impossible. Those guys will not be willing to give up the vast territory of Southeast Asia. At this moment, Shigenobu Akuma's secretary broke in sweating profusely. This made Akuma Shigenobu frown. He was very unwilling to see the people below not following the rules. What happened? It's unbecoming to be so panicked. Akuma Shigenobu reprimanded. The secretary was stunned for a moment, and then replied, Your Excellency, the Germans bombarded Shizuoka. The entire Shizuoka was bombed into ruins, and the people suffered heavy casualties. What? Shigenobu Akuma was stunned for a moment, as if he had been hit by a bolt from the blue. Hachi, what's going on? How could the Germans launch a bombardment on Shizuoka? Don't they worry about being condemned by the international community for massacring civilians like this? Akuma Shigenobu roared angrily. The secretary lowered her head and said nothing. Immediately summon other cabinet ministers and come to the Prime Minister's office immediately. Also, inform the elders of this matter. Akuma Shigenobu ordered. The German fleet launched shelling on the coastal cities of the island country. This is obviously a major event, and it must be properly negotiated and handled. Otherwise, this will have extremely serious consequences for the island country. Yes, Your Excellency the Prime Minister. The secretary immediately went to make arrangements. In less than 20 minutes, all the other ministers of the island's cabinet gathered in the Prime Minister's office. Everyone already knew what happened, so their faces were very ugly. Especially Admiral Yatsushiro Rakuro, the Minister of the Navy. The Navy was under tremendous pressure. Now, the Germans are actually bombarding the coastal cities of the island country. This is clearly to force the island country's navy to go to sea for a decisive battle. If they choose to avoid war again, who knows if the German fleet will continue to bombard their coastal cities? In that case, the loss of the island country will be great, and the navy of the island country will inevitably face the unfavorable situation that thousands of people point out. Okay, everyone is here. Then, let's start the meeting. Prime Minister Shigenobu Akuma said with a dark face. Your Excellency, the elders are here. The secretary came in suddenly and reported. Akuma Shigenobu and others immediately stood up, left the meeting room to meet the elders. Your Excellencies, it is really my crime to labor you to come to the Prime Minister's office. Akuma Shigenobu said with his head down. Akuma-kun, now is the time when the empire is in a difficult situation, so there's no need to talk about these hypocrisy. You can continue with the meeting. We are just here to observe. Yamagata Raritomo said. Hi, Yamagata-sama. Akuma Shigenobu nodded. Although, a friend from Shan County said that the elders were only here to observe, but who dares to take his words seriously? In any case, when the cabinet meets, they must give priority to their opinions. If they turn a deaf ear to it, then their current term of cabinet may be over, and they will be kicked out soon. These veterans definitely possess such powerful energy. Everyone, I just got the news. The Germans brazenly launched an attack on Shizuoka. The entire Shizuoka has been blown into ruins. According to preliminary estimates, there are more than 20,000 people killed and injured. There are more than 100,000 people who are still missing. Home. I have ordered Shizuoka Prefecture to start resettling those people immediately. But, the big question now is the German shelling of Shizuoka an exception, or will it continue? If the Germans will continue to attack the city, what should we do then? Akuma Shigenobu said. We can't let the Germans go on like that. All the key cities of the empire are in the coastal areas. If the Germans are allowed to bombard our coastal cities, it will cause a devastating blow to the empire. Ryujiro Wakatsuki said. It's already at this time, why hasn't the Navy come out to fight? Only the Navy can deal with the German fleet. If the Navy can defeat the German fleet in one fell swoop, then our coast will be truly safe. Okashinosuke clamored again. General Yatsushiro Rakuro's complexion became very ugly. He had known for a long time that the guys in the army would definitely take the opportunity to make trouble. However, the current situation is too difficult for the navy of the island country. No one thought that the Germans would take such a way to force them. If it is only attacking their merchant ships and fishing boats, then the navy can continue to hold on. But when the Germans started attacking their coastal cities, they had no more excuses. After all, the navy was built by the people tightening their belts. If they continue to preserve their strength at such a critical juncture, it will undoubtedly make the people completely angry. At that time, the navy will not have to fight the Germans. It will be directly overwhelmed by the anger of the people. Everyone. The Germans have only one purpose in doing this, and that is to force the Imperial Navy to fight them. If everyone thinks that the Imperial Navy should fight the Germans, we can send the combined fleet to fight the Germans to the death. However, what I want to tell you is that so far, we have not been sure of defeating the Germans. In other words, if the United Fleet goes to sea to fight the Germans, we will have a very high possibility of losing. Yoshiro General Liu Lang said. These senior officials of the island's cabinet are naturally not fools. They can also easily guess the intentions of the Germans. However, at this time, if the navy has not yet fought, how can they explain to the people? Of course, the people of the island country are easy to fool, but the more so, once the anger of the people erupts, it will be even more terrifying. At that time, their ruling class will probably be overthrown. HMPH. Is this how the navy fights? Before fighting the Germans, they're already expected to lose. If this is the case, do you still have the confidence to continue fighting? Okachinosuke said disdainfully. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 715, Sent to Death. If the navy does its best, will it have no chance of winning? Shankson Yupan said. Master Shankson, the German fleet has too great an advantage. Even if the Imperial Navy tries its best, there may be no hope. If we are lucky, we may be able to defeat the Germans. However, that possibility, no more than 30%. General Yatsushiro Rakuro said. Shankson Yupan frowned involuntarily. He knew that, since the Navy said this, it wasn't that they were afraid of death and avoided the war, but that they really didn't have much chance of winning. In that case, letting the Navy fight is tantamount to letting them die. Although Yupan Shankson is from the army, he also notes that it is not easy for an island country to build a powerful navy. Before the Sino-Japanese War, in order to build the navy, Emperor Meiji always took the lead in eating only 2 meals a day. The money saved was used for the construction of the navy. Other islanders naturally followed the example of Emperor Meiji. It is precisely because of this that with the concerted efforts of the island countries, they were able to defeat the Qing dynasty, which was strong in foreign countries and capable in the middle, and won a big victory in the Sino-Japanese War. Since then, the island nation has embarked on a road of rapid development. Now, although the strength of the island nation's navy has become stronger, however, their enemies were also stronger. The strength of the German navy is #1 in the world. Even if an expeditionary fleet is sent casually, it is more powerful than the combined navy of the island countries. This gap in strength is enough to make the island nation's navy feel desperate. Gentlemen, what do you think we should do? Shankson Yupan said. He couldn't think of any good way. It is almost impossible to keep the navy as much as possible while driving away the German expeditionary fleet. We need to expose the ugly behavior of the Germans to the whole world and let all countries in the world condemn them. Foreign Minister Takaki Kato said. In this way, of course, the empire can gain the sympathy of the whole world. However, it is impossible for other countries to go to war against Germany for the sake of the empire. Therefore, there is no real significance. Shankson Yaotomo shook his head. The only way is to defeat the Germans. Only in this way can the crisis be resolved. As for the others, they will not be of much use, Okashinosuke said. Everyone naturally knows that this is the best way. However, this method is also the most difficult to succeed. If the navy of the island country had the strength to defeat the German expeditionary fleet, they would have gone to sea to fight the German navy long ago. Who wouldn't want the credit of being delivered to your door? However, if you are going to die, you have to think twice. My lord, gentlemen, if the navy is required to go to sea to fight the Germans, the navy can go to sea to fight. However, the outcome is unpredictable. We will do our best to defeat the Germans, General Yatsushiro Rokuro said. No one spoke anymore, and if they did, the navy would send them to their death. If the navy wins, then everything is fine. But if the navy fails, or even the entire army is wiped out, then they have to bear the infamy of sending the navy to die. At that time, the consequences may be very serious. Even the elders with high positions and weights would not dare to say such a thing easily. Report, Your Excellency Prime Minister, Your Excellencies. Hamamatsu was attacked by the German fleet. The Prime Minister's secretary reported profusely. What? Everyone present was stunned. They couldn't believe that the Germans dared to destroy Hamamatsu after destroying Shizuoka. Damn, the Germans really want to destroy our coastal cities. Can't let the Germans go on like this. If they attack our city again, then we will pay a greater price. Hamamatsu is down to Nagoya. If the Germans destroy Hamamatsu and then attack Nagoya, what should they do? No, the people in the coastal cities must be evacuated. Otherwise, the foundation of the empire will be destroyed by the Germans. Damn Germans, why don't they go to hell? All kinds of curses filled the conference room. The entire island cabinet was in chaos, because Hamamatsu was also attacked by the Germans. Yatsushiro-kun, the navy will attack immediately. Prepare to fight the Germans to the death. Now, we have no other choice. Yamagata Raritomo ordered. Yes, Lord Yamagata. General Yatsushiro Rokuro replied. Then he turned and left the conference room, ready to go out. I hope God Amaterasu can bless us and defeat the Germans in one fell swoop. Korui now exclaimed. The Germans will go to hell. We can definitely defeat them. Masayoshi Matsukata said. Admiral Yatsushiro Rokuro returned to the Ministry of the Navy and informed Admiral Hayao Shimamura and Admiral Ijun Goro of the cabinet's decision, who also knew that by this time, it would be impossible for the Navy not to fight. They absolutely cannot allow the German Navy to plunder the coast of the island country. Although the army is powerful, it is impossible to deal with the enemy's fleet. Everything depends on the Navy. Well, now we have to fight the Germans to the death. I hope we can defeat them. General Hayao Shimamura said. I immediately ordered the fleet to get ready and set off tonight. We will fight the Germans tomorrow. If Amaterasu God blesses us, we may be able to defeat them. Otherwise, we will all die and fight to the last man. General Ijun Goro said. In the evening, the bad news came again. After the German fleet destroyed Hamamatsu, it also bombarded Nagoya. Although the residents living in Nagoya have been evacuated in advance, there are still many people who are unwilling to leave their homes. Under the bombardment of the German fleet, Nagoya was reduced to ruins. You know, this is one of the few big cities in the island country. That night, the joint fleet of the island nation's navy entered Sagami Bay from Tokyo Bay through the Uraga waterway and began to search south for traces of the German fleet. They have no other choice now. They can only fight the Germans to the death. After learning that 3 major cities had been destroyed by the Germans, the officers and soldiers of the island navy were also filled with righteous indignation. They were like wild wolves, howling and wanting to fight the Germans desperately. However, Admiral Ijun Goro, as the commander of the joint fleet, was very solemn in his heart. He knew that this time they were going to die. It is very difficult, almost impossible, to defeat the German fleet. Chapter 716, United Fleet. Ijun-kun, I wish you a successful start. Admiral Yatsushiro Rokuro said to the combined fleet commander Admiral Ijun Goro on the pier of Yokosuka Naval Port. Mr. Ijun, Amaterasu will bless you, and we will definitely defeat the Germans. Naval Commander Admiral Hayao Shimamura also said. General Ijun Goro nodded. I will try my best to defeat the Germans. Otherwise, we will fight to the death. General Yatsushiro Rakuro and General Heihachi Mamura both know that General Lee Jun-goro will die this time unless he can defeat the Germans. Either die on the battlefield or commit seppuku after losing the battle. However, in order to defeat the powerful German fleet, it is not so difficult for the navy of the island country when I lead the fleet to a decisive battle with the Germans. Don't forget to continue searching for the German transport fleet. If we can destroy the German transport fleet, even if we fail, the Germans will have to retreat. Even, we still have a slight chance of winning. In this case, it will bring the empire a long period of recuperation. General Lee Jun-goro said. His words seemed to be confessing his last words. Okay, we will do our best. General Yatsushiro Rakuro said. General Lee Jun-goro smiled gratifiedly, saluted the two of them heavily, and then turned and boarded the battle cruiser King Kong, the flagship of the United Fleet. The joint fleet of the island nation's navy undoubtedly assembled the elite of the entire island nation's navy. All battleships are assembled here. In addition to the 4 cutting-edge King Kong class battle cruisers, there are 2 Koichi class battleships, 2 Satsuma class battleships, 2 Katori class battleships, and the Iwami battleship, Hizen battleship, 2 Sagami class battleships, Tango battleship, 3 Shikishima class battleships and Fuji battleship. These battleships totaled 19. However, the 2 Sagami class battleships are equipped with 2 twin 254mm main guns, which can only be regarded as armored cruisers in other countries. However, the navy of the island country lacks capital ships, so these 2 armored cruisers are also counted as first-class warships and used as capital ships. Other battleships, except for the 4 King Kong class battleships, only 2 Hanoi class battleships can be regarded as quasi-dreadnought ships, and the others can only be regarded as pre-dreadnought ships. This makes the Japanese Navy have many capital ships, but most of them are pre-dreadnought ships with poor combat effectiveness. Once you encounter the most powerful battle cruiser of the German Navy, you can imagine what the consequences will be like. In addition to these battleships, the combined fleet of the island navy also assembled a large number of cruisers. Armored cruisers include 2 Asama class armored cruisers, Yakumo armored cruiser, Azuma armored cruiser, 2 Izumo class armored cruisers and 2 Kasuga class armored cruisers. The protected cruisers include 2 Suma class cruisers, 2 Kasaki class cruisers, 2 new advanced cruisers, a tower cruiser, tone cruiser, and 3 Chikuma class cruisers. There are also 2 cruisers that captured the Russian Navy during the Russo-Japanese War, namely the cruiser Tsuga and the cruiser Soya, a total of 8 armored cruisers and 13 protected cruisers. In terms of destroyers, the combined fleet also assembled the most cutting-edge destroyers of the Japanese Navy, including 32 Kamikaze-class destroyers and 7 Spring Rain-class destroyers, for a total of 39 ships. It can be said that the combined fleet of the island nation's navy far exceeds the German Navy's expeditionary fleet in terms of the number of warships. Whether it is a battleship, a cruiser, or a destroyer, the combined fleet of the island nation's navy has an absolute advantage. However, in terms of combat power, the navy of the island country has no advantage. Especially for the capital ships of both sides, the German expeditionary fleet can completely beat the 19 battleships of the island navy with 9 capital ships. Even relying on the advantages in performance, it is not difficult to sink all the battleships of the island navy. We have so many warships. Although the German expeditionary fleet is very strong, it is not that we have no chance of defeating them. I hope God Amaterasu can bless us and defeat the Germans in one fell swoop. On the bridge of the battle cruiser, watching the huge fleet coming out of the Yokosuka naval port, I felt confident. Is the battle plan ready? General Lee Jun-goro asked. Your Excellency, the combat staff have submitted 2 combat reports. The secretary handed the 2 documents to General Lee Jun-goro. General Lee Jun-goro immediately returned to his office and to read. The first battle plan began was unremarkable, and the main purpose was to confront the German Navy expeditionary fleet and besiege the German expeditionary fleet with a numerical advantage. However, the probability of winning this battle plan does not exceed 30%. The second battle plan focuses on using the advantages of the combined fleet of the island nation's navy in terms of the number of cruisers and destroyers, and first eliminates these small and medium-sized warships of the German expeditionary fleet, and then launches a lightning strike against the capital ships of the German navy and sinks them with torpedoes. The capital ship of the German navy. This battle plan immediately caught the eyes of General Ijungoro. If you fight recklessly, the joint fleet of the island nation's navy has almost no chance of winning. The German Navy Expeditionary Fleet will take advantage of the performance of the battleships to sink the battleships of the United Fleet little by little. The only chance to come back is to launch a lightning strike. The main guns of the battleships of the combined fleet of the Japanese Navy may not be able to penetrate the armor of the battleships of the German Expeditionary Fleet. However, torpedoes can sink it. This allows the combined fleet of the island nation's navy to have the strength to deal with the German Expeditionary Fleet. If you are lucky, you may not be able to defeat the German Expeditionary Fleet. How can we get rid of the light warships of the German Expeditionary Fleet? If we can successfully get rid of those destroyers and cruisers, using a large number of destroyers to launch lightning strikes should be able to achieve good results. Admiral Ijungoro murmured said. Now, he has begun to actively use his brain to find a way to defeat the German Expeditionary Fleet. After leaving the Yokosuka naval port, the joint fleet of the island nation's navy entered Sagami Bay from the Uraga Channel and began sailing south, preparing for a decisive battle with the German Expeditionary Fleet. Chapter 717. Strength Comparison. On the morning of August 12th, the German Expeditionary Fleet had left Ice Bay and was preparing to head south to Osaka Bay to destroy the two important cities of the island nation, Osaka and Kobe. After destroying Shizuoka, Hamamatsu, and Nagoya one after another, the officers and soldiers of the German Expeditionary Fleet have become completely numb to destroying island cities. They will no longer feel any remorse or guilt for this. After massacres have become the norm, naturally no one will care about anything. I will definitely go to after I die. Lieutenant General Spelly murmured. He found that he was about to become a devil because of his order. How many innocent people died under the shells of the expedition fleet? However, for the benefit of the German Empire, I would rather go to hell. Lieutenant General Spee's eyes immediately became firm. General, it seems that we don't need to go to Osaka Bay. Chief of Staff Major General Maofu reported. Oh. Do the islanders have the guts to fight us decisively? Lieutenant General Spelly raised his eyebrows. Yes, General. The combined fleet of the islanders has already set off from Tokyo Bay and is now heading south along the coastline. The combined fleet of the islanders is very large. There are 19 battleships alone. Of course, there are 2 of them. One seems to be an armored cruiser. There are also 8 armored cruisers, 13 cruisers and 39 destroyers. I have to admit that the islanders have sent the real main force this time. The size of this fleet is much larger than ours. Major General Maofu said. Lieutenant Admiral Spelly nodded. Indeed, the combined fleet of the island nation's navy is huge. It can be seen that they are going to fight us desperately. This time, we have to be careful, and we can't capsize in the gutter because of this. In that case, it would be very bad. After deducting the warships protecting the transport fleet, the expedition fleet now only has 9 battle cruisers, 8 light cruisers and 21 destroyers. In terms of the number of various warships, the expedition fleet is at an absolute disadvantage. Even if the warship performance of the Japanese Navy is generally not as good as that of the German expeditionary fleet, they still need to be careful. There are too many unexpected factors in the naval battle. If the naval battle is lost due to negligence, the consequences will be serious. At that time, Lieutenant General Spelly didn't know how to explain to the Kaiser. Yes, General. We have to make full use of our advantages to eliminate the island nation's combined fleet step by step. If we can eliminate the island nation's combined navy fleet without losing a single battleship like the previous naval battle with the British, that would be great. Major General Maofu said. Well, after the battle begins, let's get rid of the King Khan class battle cruisers of the islanders first. In this way, their other warships will not pose a threat to us. Lieutenant General Spee has already figured out how to win this battle up. Order the fleet, go north immediately, and prepare for a decisive battle with the islanders. Lieutenant General Spee ordered. The German expeditionary fleet immediately changed course and headed north. The reason why Lieutenant General Spee ordered the expeditionary fleet to attack the coastal cities of the island country was to force the navy of the island country to go to sea and fight them decisively. Now that the goal has been achieved, there is no need for him to order the fleet to attack the island city. After all, he is not an executioner. Of course, if the island nation's navy still refuses to accept the conditions of the German Empire after the defeat, then Lieutenant General Spee's actions may have to continue. In Sagami Bay, the joint fleet of the island nation's navies is heading south. More than 10 kilometers away from the joint fleet of the island nation's navy, 2 destroyers of the German navy were watching them from a distance. These are the destroyers G-37 and G-38 among the G-class destroyers of the German navy. These 2 destroyers have been cruising near the Uriga waterway, and their mission is to monitor the navy of the island country. Once the navy of the island country comes out of Tokyo Bay, they will immediately report to the flagship, so that the fleet can prepare for it. Your Excellency Commander, those 2 German destroyers are too annoying. With them watching from the sidelines, any of our actions are under their control. It would be even better if we can drive them away. Joint Fleet Staff Officer Major General Jintaro Nagayama said. General Ijun Goro nodded. Send 2 destroyers. By the way, you can also test the strength of the German destroyers. Hi, Your Excellency, Commander. Major Jintaro Yamashita nodded heavily. Soon, the destroyers Isaha and Aonami among the kamikaze-class battleships of the Japanese Navy left the formation and told the 2 destroyers of the German Navy to rush point. These 2 destroyers can be regarded as the most cutting-edge destroyers of the Japanese Navy, with a displacement of 450 tons and a maximum speed of 29 knots, with 450mm torpedo tube. However, compared with the G-class destroyers of the German Navy, the kamikaze-class destroyers of the Japanese Navy are not very good. The G-class destroyer has a displacement of 1051 tons and a maximum speed of 34 knots. It is equipped with 3 88mm single-mounted guns and 6 500mm torpedo tubes. The displacement of the G-class destroyer is more than twice that of the kamikaze-class destroyer, and the maximum speed is 5 knots higher. Although the number of artillery is only half of that of the kamikaze destroyer, the 88mm naval gun with 45 times the caliber is much more powerful than the 80mm naval gun with 40 times the caliber and the 80mm naval gun with 28 times the caliber. Not to mention that the rate of fire of the naval guns of the German Navy is much higher. In terms of firepower output, the G-class destroyer is not only not weaker than the kamikaze destroyer, but even has an advantage. In terms of torpedoes, the G-class destroyer can launch heavy torpedoes, while the kamikaze destroyer can only launch medium-sized torpedoes. On the destroyer G-37, the captain, Captain Mike, looked at the 2 island nation destroyers rushing towards them with a sneer. The islanders are indeed so stingy. They are also a country that lacks resources. The destroyers of the Empire are more than twice as large as this. It's really incredible to equip so many main guns on a destroyer with a displacement of more than 400 tons. I know what the islanders think. Don't they think that the more artillery a battleship has, the more powerful it will be? If that's the case, just put as many artillery pieces on the battleship as possible. Captain Mike said disdainfully. Send a telegram to destroyer G-38 and let them prepare for battle. Since the islanders want to die by themselves, we will fulfill them. Captain Mike sneered. Chapter 718, Gap. A distance of more than 10 kilometers is nothing to a destroyer sailing at high speed. It only takes 10 minutes. The 2 kamikaze-class destroyers of the Japanese Navy rushed to the 2 G-class destroyers of the German Navy with courage. Although, the kamikaze-class destroyer is more than half the size of the G-class destroyer. However, there is a huge fleet main force behind them, so they are not afraid at all. Reduce the speed to 2,000 meters, then open fire, sink the German destroyer, avenge the people of the Empire who were massacred by them, and make the Germans regret coming to the Far East. Captain Shigeki Sonoda, the builder of the destroyer Isaheim ordered. Hi, Your Excellency Captain. The other officers and soldiers replied loudly. Captain Matsushita Sokichi, the captain of the destroyer enemy, also issued a similar order. Although their destroyers are much smaller than those of the Germans, they still have great advantages, especially the number of naval guns is double that of the destroyers of the German Navy. This gives them a considerable advantage in close combat. However, the 2 G-class destroyers of the German Navy obviously will not give them this opportunity. When the two sides were 3 kilometers apart, Captain Mike gave the order to fire. Boom. 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 The 388mm naval guns on the destroyer G-37 began to fire wildly. The dense shell slammed hard at the destroyer Isaha. Germany's artillery technology is enough to throw the island country several streets away. This makes their artillery not only have a greater range and power than those of the island countries, but also a much faster rate of fire. In particular, the 88mm main gun is a classic German gun. The maximum rate of fire can reach more than 10%. Boom. 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 Shells kept falling around the destroyer Isaha, splashing jets of water. Bagger. Didn't our intelligence say that there were only 388mm naval guns on the German destroyer? But how could their gunfire be so fierce? Captain Shigeki Tsunoda cursed with a black face. The artillery of the destroyers of the German Navy fired at a fast rate, which gave Lieutenant Shigeki Tsunoda the feeling that there were more than 10 artillery pieces firing at them. Of course Shigeki Tsunoda knew why. However, this terrified him very much. The destroyers of the German Navy effectively made up for the gap in the number of naval guns with their rate of fire, and even had a great advantage. This makes it very difficult for the destroyers of the island navy to win. At the same time, the destroyer G-38 of the German Navy also began to fire on the destroyer enemy of the Japanese Navy. The fierce artillery fire made the destroyer enemy of the Japanese Navy realize what it means to be rained like bullets. Although the distance between the two sides was still relatively far, there was no other way. Captain Shigeki Tsunoda and Captain Matsushita Sokichi had to order to fight back. At this distance, their 40 caliber 80mm naval guns can threaten the destroyers of the German Navy. However, the 80mm naval gun with 28 times the caliber is much worse. On the battleship King Kong, Admiral Ijun Goro and Major General Yamashita Jintaro both looked uneasy. Their 2 destroyers were suppressed by 2 destroyers of the German Navy as soon as they fought. This undoubtedly shows how big the performance gap between the 2 warships is. If this continues, the destroyers of the island nation's navy will have no chance of winning at all. Instead, they will be hit, or even sunk as time goes by. Boom. An 88mm artillery shell hit the bow of the destroyer Isaha, and easily blew a big hole in its bow. Destroyers have almost no armor, because of their small displacement, and they all run naked. This makes its ability to resist blows, and naturally it is very bad. Compared with the destroyers of the German Navy, there are more or less some armor in the core parts. The destroyers of the island navy, in order to equip more naval guns on the small hull, naturally save as much as possible in other aspects. Under such circumstances, its survivability can be imagined. Immediately afterwards, another shell hit the destroyer Isaha. This shell hit the side of the destroyer Isaha, blowing away a 28 caliber 80mm secondary gun, and at the same time, caused the shells piled up next to the gun to explode, destroying the entire side. A large piece was blown up, and a raging fire was ignited. Bagger. Captain Shigeki Tsunoda, his face was as dark as the bottom of a pot. One's own warships were hit continuously, but they couldn't hit the enemy's warships at all. The idiot also knows that they have less than the slightest advantage in this battle. The battle between the destroyer enemy and the destroyer G-38 was almost one-sided. The destroyer enemy was completely suppressed and was hit continuously. Good job. Let the gunners work harder, and the battle will be resolved within 5 minutes. Captain Mike had a smile on his lips, as if he had seen that his side was about to win. Yes, Your Excellency, Captain. Boom. 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 The gunners stuffed the shells one by one into the barrel at the fastest speed, and then fired them out. The 388mm naval guns on the destroyers of the German Navy exerted great power. Soon, the destroyers Isaha and enemy of the island navy were beaten and bruised. The superstructure has been beaten with holes everywhere, and a raging fire has also ignited. It seemed only a matter of time before they were sunk. Bagger. Damn the German destroyer. How could it be so powerful? Our destroyer has no power to fight back in front of them. Major Jintaro Yamashita's face was as hen. He never thought that the destroyer confrontation between the two sides would have such a result. Although he knew that the destroyers of the German Navy were very strong, he didn't know that they would be so strong. General Ijun Goro also had an ugly expression on his face. Although, even if the two destroyers were sunk, it would not be a big loss to the navy of the island country. However, before the main confrontation between the two navies, if they can win the destroyer confrontation, this will undoubtedly have a great boost to the morale of the fleet. But now it appears that his expectations have been dashed. Their destroyers not only have no way to win, but may be sunk instead. If this continues, it will also deal a considerable blow to the morale of the fleet. Chapter 719, The Main Showdown. Rear Admiral Jintaro Yamashita, Chief of Staff of the United Fleet, saw Admiral Ijun Goro's ugly face, gritted his teeth, and immediately gave orders for other warships to go to battle. Yuzuki, Mizunozuki, Nagatsuki and Kikuzuki, attack immediately and kill the two German destroyers. Hi, General. The communications officer immediately went to send a telegram. 4 kamikaze-class destroyers immediately attacked the 2 destroyers of the German Navy. After receiving the order, despicable islanders, 2 of them are not our opponents, and now they have dispatched 4 destroyers again in one breath. 5 or 3 minutes, the last 3 minutes, if the destroyers of the islanders cannot be sunk, we have no choice but to retreat. Captain Mike ordered. This made the 2 destroyers of the German Navy fire even more frantically. The dense shells hit the 2 kamikaze destroyers of the island like a torrential rain, Navy-like boom. An 88mm artillery shell hit the bridge of the destroyer Isaha. After the shell penetrated the bulkhead, it exploded inside. Although the power of the 88mm shell was not great, it exploded in the narrow bridge and scattered the shrapnel, easily killing all the officers and soldiers of the Japanese Navy inside, including Captain Shigeki Sonoda. In the next 3 minutes, the destroyer Isaha was hit more than 10 times again. Such an injury is undoubtedly fatal for a destroyer with a displacement of only 450 tons. Soon, the destroyer sank into the sea due to her injuries. The destroyer Ayanami was lucky and escaped. Although also severely damaged, the other 4 destroyers of the island navy arrived. This allowed the 2 destroyers of the German Navy to give up continuing to shoot at the destroyer Ayanami and retreat instead. The 4 kamikaze-class destroyers of the island nation's navy are chasing after them. However, the maximum speed of the G-class destroyers of the German Navy is as high as 34 knots, which is not something that these kamikaze-class destroyers of the island navy can catch up with. The end result is that they can only watch the 2 G-class destroyers of the German Navy cruising around the combined fleet, and there is no way to catch up. Don't worry about the 2 destroyers of the Germans. Let's continue going south. Anyway, our goal this time is to fight the Germans. Even if they know our whereabouts, so what? As long as our fleet always moves together, just don't give them a chance. Admiral Ijun Goro ordered. Hi, Your Excellency, Commander. Major Jintaro Yamashita modestly unwillingly. At this moment, the German naval expedition fleet is heading north. Now that the island navy has the courage to go to sea for a decisive battle, of course they cannot let go of this opportunity. If the main force of the island nation's navy can be eliminated in one fell swoop in this decisive battle, the next battle will be much easier to fight. They can even continue to persecute the island government without any worries, give up their ambitions, and accept the conditions of the German government. The Admiral, Destroyer G-37 and Destroyer G-38 just won a small victory. They sank 1 destroyer of the ISL Navy and severely damaged another. The ISL Navy sent more destroyers in pursuit, but they took advantage of their speed to throw them away. I think the islanders will be very aggrieved now. Major General Malfu had a smile on his face. Well, it seems that the performance of the warships of the islanders is even worse than I imagined. If this is the case, the possibility of our victory in this battle will be even greater. Lieutenant General Spenny also showed a smile on his face. General, I want to inform the entire fleet of this news. Rear Admiral Mayofu asked for instructions. Yes, let everyone be happy. Lieutenant General Spenny nodded. Is fighting in the sea thousands of miles away from the mainland, which makes the officers and soldiers somewhat depressed. A small victory will undoubtedly boost the morale of the fleet. Let them know that victory is soon to come. At that time, the fleet can set off to return to Germany. Sure enough, after the fleet learned that they had sunk a destroyer of the Japanese Navy and had severely damaged one, the officers and soldiers cheered. The coastal cities of the island nation were attacked before, although a large number of islanders were also killed. However, for a soldier, this is not a military exploit, but it makes them feel a little unnatural. Now, the joy of victory has finally diluted the negative emotions in their hearts, allowing them to fully devote themselves to the next battle. The German Expeditionary Fleet and the combined island nation fleet are approaching at high speed. Both sides knew that a large-scale decisive battle was inevitable. Therefore, none of them took the initiative to avoid such a decisive battle. They all wanted to defeat the enemy and win in the next big battle. At 11 o'clock in the morning, the fleets of the two sides encountered in the sea about 50 kilometers away from Ice Bay. The huge combined naval fleet of the island nation is heading south. 19 battleships have already formed a long battle line. Other armored cruisers, protected cruisers, and destroyers formed multiple formations around the main fleet to provide them with protection. For a country like an island country, it is already a rare thing to be able to have such a huge fleet in a short period of time. Lieutenant General Spee said. Yes, General. However, after today, there will be no combined naval fleets of island countries. They will all be sunk by us. Rear Admiral Mao Fu said confidently. Order all ships to prepare for battle. All battle cruisers, form a battle line. Lieutenant General Spee ordered. Yes, General. Major General Mao Fu immediately conveyed the order. On the other side, General Ijungoro also gave the order to prepare for battle. The battle line composed of 19 capital ships began to turn, trying to narrow the distance with the German fleet. After all, except for the 4 King Khan class battle cruisers, the capital ships of the Japanese Navy are equipped with 305mm main guns, and even the Sagami class are equipped with 254mm main guns. If the combat distance is too far, the power of these smaller caliber main guns cannot be exerted. Only by narrowing the distance as much as possible can there be a chance of winning. At the same time, Admiral Ijungoro also gave orders to the cruiser formation and destroyer formation of the United Fleet, asking them to find an opportunity to kill the light cruisers and destroyers of the German Navy and prepare for the subsequent lightning strikes. Chapter 720, Fierce Battle. In order to prevent the combined fleet of the island nation's navy from escaping back to Ice Bay when the war is unfavorable, the battle line of the German Expeditionary Fleet chose to sail eastward. In this case, the battle will be fought in the Pacific Ocean. At that time, the capital ship of the German Expeditionary Fleet can firmly suppress the capital ship of the combined fleet of the island navy by virtue of its advantage and speed. General Ijungoro, he is very clear about the thoughts of the Germans. However, he had no choice but to order the fleet to turn with the German Navy. Otherwise, once the German fleet is not wiped out in this naval battle, then what awaits them may be a disastrous defeat. The German fleet will take advantage of the performance advantages of the warships to gradually eliminate all the warships in their combined fleet bit by bit. Therefore, they must seize this opportunity. The distance is 18,000 meters. The officer in charge of measuring the distance is reporting the distance between the two sides. The distance is 16 kilometers. The distance between the two sides is constantly approaching. When the distance is shortened to 15,000 meters, start firing. Exchange fire at a long distance as much as possible, and don't give the islanders a chance to shorten the distance. Lieutenant General Spee ordered. As an experienced general who has experienced several naval battles, Lieutenant General Spee knows how to use his own advantages. Making full use of these advantages may help them defeat the islanders at the least cost. Yes, General. Rear Admiral Mao Fu immediately conveyed Lieutenant General Spee's order to the subordinate warships. Soon, the distance was shortened to 15,000 meters. The battle cruiser Mackensen, the flagship of the German Expeditionary Fleet, opened fire first. 3 triple-mounted 380mm main guns with 50 times their caliber began to pour shells at the battle cruiser King Kong, the flagship of the island navy's combined fleet. Boom. 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 Orange flames shone at the muzzle, and shells roared and smashed towards the battle cruiser King Kong. The firing of the battlecruiser Mackensen undoubtedly gave a signal to other warships. The other battleships also opened fire. Bagger. The Germans opened fire at such a long distance? Did they think they could hit at such a long distance? Major General Jintaro Yamashita scolded. Mr. Yamashita, this is the gap between the Imperial Navy and the world's first-class navy. According to the information we have obtained, the naval battles that broke out in Europe have generally been at a distance of more than 15,000 meters. It is a pity that the Imperial Navy lacks first-class naval forces main battleship, so there is no way to carry out relevant training. General Ijungoro's eyes flashed a hint of ending. This is the difference in background. Although Germany was unified after the Meiji Restoration and the island country, however, the former Kingdom of Prussia has always been one of the world's powerful countries, and the island country is much worse than before. Coupled with the fact that the industry is underdeveloped and relatively poor at the same time, this makes the island country have a huge gap with the world's top powers in many arms that require huge investment. In contrast, because the army needs to invest less money and is poisoned by the spirit of Bushido, the combat effectiveness of the army of the island country is not bad. Boom. 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 The 9 however battlecruisers of the German Navy opened fire one after another. One after another, the heavy shells were slammed into the battleships of the island navy. Although, in terms of the number of capital ships, the German expeditionary fleet is completely at a disadvantage. Judging from the situation on the battlefield, they were on the contrary the offensive side, taking the initiative from the moment the battle started. Boom. Or 380mm artillery shell exploded less than 50 meters away from the battlecruiser Qin Tian. The splashed water column fell down, drenching several island sailors on the deck into drowned chickens. Your Excellency, why are the Germans' artillery skills so strong? Major Jintaro Yamashita's expression changed. The quality of the German Navy has always been very strong. It is no worse than the British Navy. Compared with them, the Imperial Navy has a certain gap. What's more, the German warships should have many new technologies. The latest test the distance equipment, aiming equipment, etc. are all better than our warships. If the Imperial Navy can equip such advanced warships, our performance will not be much worse than theirs. General Ijungoro's face was full of regret. The battle between them and the German Navy is completely about the weak against the strong. If you want to win, the difficulty can be imagined. Jintaro Yamashita nodded and said nothing more. Order our battleships to counterattack. If this continues, some battleships may be hit soon. In that case, it will cause a serious blow to the morale of the fleet. Admiral Ijungoro ordered. Hi, Your Excellency, Commander. Major Jintaro Yamashita immediately conveyed the order. The 4 twin-mounted 356mm main guns of the battleship Qin Tian fired first. Their target is also the battlecruiser Mackensen, the flagship of the German Navy's expeditionary fleet. 8 heavy shells roared and smashed towards the battlecruiser Mackensen. The other capital ships of the combined fleet of the island nation's navy also opened fire immediately. Because the combined fleet has an advantage in the number of capital ships. Therefore, in terms of the distribution of battle lines, Admiral Ijungoro ranked the 2 Sagami-class battleships at the end. And when assigning strike targets to capital ships were also used to deal with the battlecruiser of the German Navy. The Qin Tian and the He deal with the Mackensen. Hiruna and Kirishima deal with Prince Frederick. Hanoi and Setsu deal with Friedrich Karl. Satsuma and Enian against Derflinger. Katori and Kashima against Lutzow. Iwami and Hizen against Hindenburg, Tango, and Shikishima against Moldk. Asahi and Mikasa against Goben. Fuji, Sagamino and Zhaofang against the Sedlitz. It can be said that the combined fleets of the island nations' navies are 2-on-1 or even 3-on-1, which makes them seem to have an absolute advantage in battle. However, in fact, except for the 45 x 356mm main guns of the 4 Qin Tian class battleships that seem to pose a certain threat, the 305mm main guns of the rest of the battleships are not that powerful. Of course, when the battle lines of both sides fired fiercely, the battle still seemed extremely fierce. Chapter 721. Devastated. Boom. 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 Heavy artillery shells flew out of the muzzle, and under the action of huge kinetic energy, they smashed into the enemy's battleship. The officers and soldiers of the island navy and the German navy on the battlefield are doing their best to sink the enemy's warship. For them, if they want to survive, they can only kill the enemy. There is no other way to choose. The shell exploded in the sea, splashing a column of water that soared into the sky. It made this piece of sea boil up. Although the number of warships in the joint fleet of the island nation's navy is greater, however, they did not have any advantage in the battle. Even though they were besieging German warships, they were the ones who were suppressed instead. Boom. After a 15-minute test launch, the German Navy Expeditionary Fleet finally scored its first hit. A shell fired from the battleship Derflinger hit the battleship Satsuma of the Japanese Navy. The heavy 380mm shells easily tore the 2-inch thick deck armor of the Satsuma battleship into pieces. The shells pierced through several layers of bulkheads before exploding. The huge force blasted the entire bow of the battleship Samo into a mess. The fire then burned inside the battleship, causing the sailors of the island country to rush into the fire without even having time to wear their gas masks, trying to put out the fire. It is not known how many people died under the poisonous smoke. Bastard. Put out the fire. The captain of the battleship Satsuma shouted Dazoya Shijimashijitero. Once the fire spreads to the ammunition depot, it will be bad. As the former dreadnought Satsuma battleship, the displacement is only more than 19,000 tons. Not only is the armor weak, but the defense of many cabins inside is also very low. Even a raging fire can cause fatal damage to a battleship. This order made more sailors from the island nation rush into the fire and use their lives to put out the fire. Your Excellency, the Satsuma was hit, and the situation is very bad. The German 380mm main gun is too powerful, and the shells can tear everything apart. Major Jintaro Yamashita looked very bad. It is not the former dreadnoughts that decide the outcome, but the 4 King Khan class battleships. If we can quickly disable or even sink the 2 battleships in front of the German battle line, then we will still there is a chance. General Ijungoro said. The 356mm main guns of the 4 King Khan class battleships are the only ones that can pose a threat to German battleships. Let's find a way to shorten the distance with the Germans. Only in this way can the power of our main guns be brought into play. Otherwise, those 305mm shells would be difficult to hit the target. Major General Jintaro Yamashita said, "It's very difficult, almost impossible. The Germans will not allow us to get closer. Our warships, except for the 4 King Khan class that can reach 25 knots, the speed of the rest of the warships is too slow. In terms of speed, we simply can't catch up with the German battle cruisers. If the King Khan class battle cruisers are allowed to pursue, this will only make our King Khan class battle cruisers fall into the hands of the Germans. Under siege." General Ijungoro shook his head. "So, the battle can only go on like this. The navy of the island country knows that it is not good for them, but there is no way to change it. Perhaps they also pinned their hopes on the blessing of the illusory god Amaterasu." As time went on, the battle became more intense. In other words, the German navy began to gradually achieve hits through its advanced and powerful qualities. On the other hand, the navies of the island countries have nothing to gain from their shells other than falling into the sea to fry fish. If this continues, it is undoubtedly obvious which navy will win in the end. Boom. Or 343mm artillery shell fired from the battle cruiser Moltke hit the battleship Tango. This old battleship with a displacement of more than 11,000 tons already has to a 10-year-old ship. A Russian battleship captured by the island nation's navy during the Russo-Japanese War. In Western countries, such battleships would have been decommissioned long ago. However, in the Japanese navy, this is still an out-and-out capital ship. The place where the shell hit was the waterline of the battleship Tango. Although, the waterline armor of the Tango battleship is as thick as 368mm. However, the defensive power of the old style armor is very limited, and it cannot withstand the new style capped armor piercing bullets at all. Therefore, the 343mm artillery shell fired by the battle cruiser Moltke easily penetrated the waterline armor of the battleship Tango, and blew a big hole near the waterline of the hull. Seawater frantically poured into the battleship from the hole. The sailors of the island nation on the battleship Tango desperately wanted to plug the loophole. However, because the hole was too big and the water pressure was too strong, It was impossible to succeed at all. In addition, the setting of watertight compartments of old-fashioned battleships like the Tango battleship is extremely unreasonable. Even if the watertight compartments are closed, the battleship will capsize due to too much water. This has undoubtedly declared the fate of the battleship Tango. Your Excellency, the battleship Tango was hit, and a big hole was blown below the waterline. The damage control personnel have nothing to do about it. Major General Jintaro Yamashita reported with a dark face. General Ijungoro also closed his eyes in pain. Although he knew that in this battle, many battleships of island countries would definitely be sunk. But what he didn't expect was that some battleships couldn't hold on so soon. This undoubtedly shows that the German expedition fleet is stronger than he imagined. Let everyone on Tango evacuate. In this battle, the Imperial Navy will inevitably suffer heavy losses. Saving one more person can be regarded as saving a little strength for the Imperial Navy, Admiral Ijungoro said. At this moment, the battleship Shikishima hit the battlecruiser Moki. Or 305mm artillery shell successfully hit the front main gun of the battlecruiser Moltke. Long live. When the explosion sounded, and a fireball rose from the deck of the battlecruiser Moltke, the sailors of the island nation cheered. However, then they were dumbfounded. Because the battlecruiser Moltke was not damaged at all. The main turret that was hit was still firing, as if nothing happened. This immediately caused the morale of the combined fleet of the island nation's navy to drop in an avalanche. After all, the enemy's main guns can easily kill one's own warship, but one's own main gun can't penetrate the armor of the enemy's warship. Doesn't this deserve to be ravaged by the enemy? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 722, Pebble Hit Rock. Damn it. The German battleship is unscathed. How can this be fought? Rear Admiral Jintaro Yamashita opened his mouth, as if he could swallow his own fist. It was the first time he had seen such a situation. General Ijungoro shook his head helplessly. The defense of the German warships is too strong. Their design philosophy of warships is to attach importance to the survivability of warships. This point has been proved to be extremely correct by the British. The British also, it is precisely because of this that they suffered a huge loss in the decisive battle with the German Navy. The turret armor of the battlecruiser Moltke is as thick as 330mm. The old-fashioned 40 caliber 305mm main gun of the battleship Shikishima wants to penetrate such a thick armor. How is this possible? However, the battlecruiser Moltke was hit, which still shocked the captain. He immediately ordered to abandon the battleship Tango that was destined to sink, and aimed at the battleship Shikishima, trying to get rid of the battleship that hit him. The battleship Tango, which was seriously flooded, did not last long in the end. In less than 10 minutes, the battleship sank into the sea. Of the 668 crew members on the battleship, less than half escaped. The rest of the people sank into the sea together with the battleship. The battleship Tango became the first battleship to be sunk in this naval battle. Even though this is just an old pre-dreadnought ship, it also cheered the officers and soldiers of the German Expeditionary Fleet. After the battleship Tango sank, only the battleship Shikishima was left to fight alone. Facing the fierce firepower of the battlecruiser Moltke, the battleship Shikishima is in danger. It's no wonder that trying to use these old pre-dreadnoughts to fight against the world's most powerful battlecruiser, it is naturally very normal to have such a result. General, we have already killed one. On board the battlecruiser Mackensen, the flagship of the German Expeditionary Fleet, Major General Mayofu said excitedly. Well, but there are still 18 island warships that need to be sunk. Lieutenant General Spee nodded. Sinking a battleship of the island navy is undoubtedly a good start, but if you want to completely win this naval battle, you have to sink all the remaining 18 battleships of the island navy. This is the real victory. General, you will see. Our warships will definitely be able to kill all the warships left by the islanders. Major General Mayofu was very confident about this. Lieutenant General Shipei smiled, not paying attention. In other words, he never thought that it would be so difficult to change the huge combined fleet of island nations in front of him. With the strength of the German Navy's expeditionary fleet, defeating such a fleet should have been a sure thing point. Although the combined naval fleet of the island country has 19 battleships, it is a pity that these 19 battleships have only 32 45 caliber 356mm main guns, 8 50 caliber 305mm main guns, and 32 45 caliber main guns 305mm main gun, 28 40 caliber 305mm main guns and 4 45 caliber 254mm main guns. In contrast, the 9 battle cruisers of the German Navy have 54 50 caliber 380mm main guns and 27 50 caliber 343mm main guns. It is undoubtedly obvious who is strong and who is weak. It is difficult for the 305mm main guns of the island navy to cause fatal damage to the battle cruisers of the German Navy. At most they can penetrate some superstructures. As long as the core compartment is not destroyed, the combat effectiveness of the battle cruisers of the German Navy will not be greatly affected. The Qin Tian class battle cruiser has become the hope of Admiral Ijungoro and others. They hope that the 356mm main gun of the Qin Tian class battleship can penetrate the German Navy's Mackensen battlecruiser and Frederick. If the armor of the battlecruiser Prince can sink these 2 battle cruisers, then they still have a chance to come back. It's a pity that the officers and soldiers of the island nation's navy on the 4 Qin Tian class battle cruisers tried their best, but they didn't seem to have achieved any results. Boom. The battle cruiser He fired a salvo, and 8 356mm shells flew towards the battle cruiser Mackensen. Among the 8 356mm shells, one scored a hit. The shell hit the rear deck of the battleship Mackensen. The fragile deck armor could not stop the heavy shells at all, and was directly penetrated. Fortunately, this artillery shell did not cause any serious damage to the battleship Mackensen. It just blew a big hole in the rear deck, killed several sailors, and caused a fire. Subsequently, the battlecruiser Mackensen retaliated. A 380mm artillery shell directly hit the bow of the battlecruiser Qin Tian. The fragile side armor was as if it was made of paper. Under the huge kinetic energy of the 380mm shell, it was penetrated at once. The shell exploded inside the battleship, igniting a raging fire. Damn it. How's the loss? General Ijungoro's expression changed drastically. If the battlecruiser Qin Tian is severely damaged, then there is no way to continue this battle. Your Excellency, a limited part of the bow of the ship was hit. Fortunately, the place where the hit was above the waterline did not cause much damage. A staff officer reported. General Ijungoro put his heart in his stomach all the time. Tell all the ships that the flagship is fine. Let them continue to fight. Admiral Ijungoro ordered. Hi, Your Excellency Commander. The fierce battle is still going on, but the battle is still developing in favor of the German expeditionary fleet. It is not half as difficult for the island navy to defeat the German Navy's expeditionary fleet. Boom. A huge explosion sounded, and the side of the battlecruiser Hiruna was shrouded in fireballs and gunpowder smoke. A 380mm artillery shell fired from the battlecruiser Prince Frederick successfully hit him. A 152mm secondary gun was blown up immediately. If you look at it from a distance, you can find that the battlecruiser Hiruna looks like it was bitten by a monster. Good job. Let the Prince Frederick continue to work hard. These Qin Tian class battle cruisers are the backbone of the island nation's navy. If we can get rid of these Qin Tian class battle cruisers, we will win. There was a smile on the corner of Lieutenant General Shipei's mouth. Chapter 723, No Chance of Winning. At the tail of the battle line, the battle cruiser Seydlitz of the German Navy is heroically fighting against 3 with 1 enemy. Moreover, the 3 battleships of the island navy were beaten into a panic, and they were almost overwhelmed. Not because of other reasons, but because the 3 battleships of the island navy are really bad. The Fuji battleship is the first pre-dreadnought ship equipped by the Japanese Navy. It is a pre-dreadnought ship purchased from the United Kingdom gun and 10 40 caliber 152mm secondary guns and 24 47mm guns. Among the former dreadnoughts, such firepower can be regarded as powerful. In terms of armor, the armor of the battleship Fuji is also very thick, with a side armor thickness of 457 mm, a deck armor thickness of 102 mm, a conning tower armor thickness of 356 mm, and a turret armor thickness of 356 mm. Such armor is undoubtedly very thick. But alas, these armors are old-fashioned armor. The old-fashioned armor with a thickness of 457 mm is probably not as good as the new style armor with a thickness of more than 200 mm. Therefore, in front of the battlecruiser Seydlitz, the battleship Fuji is like a lamb to be slaughtered. As for the battleships Sagami and Zhaofang, they were even more ignored. Even if the battleship Seydlitz does not fight back, let the battleship Sagami and the battleship Zhaofang shoot. Its 254mm main gun with 45 times the caliber will never attack the battleship Seydlitz. What a threat. At most, the superstructure of the battleship Seydlitz was riddled with holes. It is simply impossible to sink the Seydlitz. Therefore, the battlecruiser Seydlitz was able to use all its firepower to attack the battleship Fuji, and after it was ready to sink the battleship, it would teach the Sagami and Zhaofang a lesson. Boom. Or 343mm artillery shell hit the armor of the conning tower of the battleship Fuji, although the armor of the conning tower was as thick as 356mm. However, the defense of the old-fashioned armor was not strong in the first place, so it was easily penetrated. The shell exploded inside the command tower, and more than a dozen officers, including the captain Iranishi Kajitero, were all killed. This caused the battleship Fuji to lose its command immediately. Immediately afterwards, in less than 2 minutes, the battleship Seydlitz scored another hit. Or 343mm artillery shell hit the stern of the battleship Fuji. The shells pierced the deck armor and exploded inside the battleship. The huge power blows up the entire stern of the ship. A transmission shaft was also blown off. This caused the battleship Fuji, which was originally not fast, to begin to decline again. After the speed slowed down, this made the battleship Fuji easier to be hit. In the next 5 minutes, the battleship Fuji was hit as many as 4 times. 4 343mm artillery shells caused fatal damage to the battleship Fuji. Even the keel of the battleship was blown off. In the violent explosion, the battleship was broken into 2 pieces, and the head and tail sank into the sea respectively. None of the more than 700 island navy sailors on the battleship survived. After sinking the battleship Fuji, the battlecruiser Seydlitz immediately turned its guns and launched an attack on the battleship Sagami. Although the battleship Sagami is listed as a first-class battleship, this is mainly because it has a displacement of 13,500 tons. Its 245 caliber 254mm main guns are not the main guns that a battleship should have anyway. During the battle, the battleships Sagami and Zhaofang also hit the battleship Seydlitz many times. However, it basically didn't cause too much damage to it. On the contrary, the 343mm main gun of the battlecruiser Seydlitz can easily damage these 2 battleships. Or 343mm shell can severely damage it, and if it hits a vital position, it can also sink it. Under the onslaught of the battlecruiser Seydlitz, the battleship Sagami persisted for 8 minutes before being sunk. The performance of the battleship Zhaofang was a little better, but it only lasted for 13 minutes. When the battleship Zhaofang sank into the sea, the battlecruiser Seydlitz began to attack the battleship Mikasa of the Japanese Navy. The battle has progressed so far, and the navy of the island country has lost a full 4 battleships. This made them face the advantage of the capital ship of the German Expeditionary Fleet, and they were constantly losing. In the beginning, they had more than twice the numerical advantage. But now, even the double advantage could not be maintained. The consequence of this is undoubtedly the balance of victory, which once again tilted towards the German Navy's Expeditionary Fleet. Hachi, Your Excellency, Commander, we have lost 4 capital ships so far. If this continues, what will happen? Major General Jintaro Yamashita's face was livid. His previous ambitions had completely dissipated, replaced by deep worries about the upcoming battle situation. General Ajun Goro nodded. He also felt this. Although, the battle is still in full swing. However, almost all the German Expeditionary Fleet, whose capital ships were at a disadvantage, suppressed them. It won't be long before their battleships are sunk. Although the capital ships of the German expeditionary fleet will also be hit, they can only cause some negligible injuries to them. There is still a very long distance from a serious injury, let alone a sinking. Boom. Suddenly, an earth-shattering explosion sounded. The bow of the battle cruiser Hiruna swelled up. Immediately, flames and smoke erupted from the entire bow of the ship. When the smoke cleared, everyone discovered that the bow of the battle cruiser Hiruna had disappeared. Or 380mm artillery shell fired from the battleship Prince Frederick hit the number 1 main turret on the front deck of the battleship Hiruna. The main turret armor, which is only 230mm thick, naturally cannot withstand 380mm shells. The shell not only penetrated the main turret, but also exploded after penetrating the armor of the ammunition depot. At the same time, hundreds of 356mm shells in the ammunition depot were also detonated. That's why it exploded with such great power. After the explosion, the battlecruiser Hiruna began to sink. Such trauma cannot be saved at all, and everyone can only watch the battlecruiser sink into the sea quickly. What sank into the sea at the same time seemed to have the confidence of General Ijungoro. He knew that this time there was no chance of winning. Chapter 724, Opportunity to come back. Your Excellency, Commander, we can't go on like this. We have already lost 5 battleships. If this continues, we will lose all of our battleships soon. We will lose this battle. Yamashita Major General Jintaro looked anxious. At this moment in the naval battle, there is no doubt that the battleships of the combined fleet of the island nations' navy are not the opponents of the German expeditionary fleet. Even under the attack of the German expeditionary fleet, they didn't even have the power to fight back. This battle has been fought until now, and the warships of the island nation's navy have been sunk, and the warships of the German expeditionary fleet have not suffered much loss in combat effectiveness. It can be seen that the island navy is completely at a disadvantage in this battle. General Ijungoro nodded. Compared with the Germans, our strength is still far behind. The former dreadnoughts have always been unable to confront dreadnoughts. Regarding this, General Ijungoro was very helpless. When Western powers no longer use the former dreadnoughts in large-scale naval battles, the navy of the island country still uses the former dreadnoughts as the main force on the spot. It can be seen how big the gap between the two sides is. Under such circumstances, the difficulty of defeating the German expeditionary fleet can be imagined. This is mainly because the national power of the island countries is too weak, and they simply do not have enough financial and material resources to support the development of the navy. After all, every dreadnought ship needs a lot of money to accumulate. Without money, what do you use to build battleships? Originally, the island country wanted to take advantage of this world war to make a fortune. Another island country in time and space, relying on the world war, made a lot of war fortune. Not only did they repay all their debts, but they also reaped great benefits. This has greatly developed the economic and military strength of the island country. However, this space-time is different. It has only been a year since the war broke out. Although Germany has not yet destroyed Britain, anyone with a discerning eye can see that the Britain are just the last struggle. It is impossible for them to last long. Soon, the war was over. All countries in the world will have no chance to make war fortunes. What's more, the island country is now involved in the war because of its own greed and ambition. The German expeditionary fleet destroyed several coastal cities of the island nation, which already cost them a very heavy price. If the island countries cannot truly appropriate the colonies in Southeast Asia as their own, they will lose more than they gain in this war. Yamashita-kun, let our cruiser formation get ready. Admiral Ijungoro ordered. Yes, Your Excellency, Commander. Major Jintaro Yamashita nodded. According to the Joint Fleet's combat plan, when the capital ship cannot compete with the German expeditionary fleet, they can only adopt risky tactics. That is to use the cruiser formation to eliminate the small and medium-sized warships of the German Navy, and then use the destroyer formation to launch a lightning strike. Use torpedoes to severely damage and even sink German Navy battle cruisers. In this case, they have a chance of winning. It's just that no one can say clearly whether such a tactic will be successful. After all, although the cruisers and destroyers of the island navies combined fleet have a great advantage in number, but in terms of performance, there is no advantage at all. Of course, the armored cruisers that the German expeditionary fleet did not have were a great advantage they had. After receiving the order, the cruiser formation of the island navy immediately took action. 8 armored cruisers and 13 cruisers circled to the left of the German expeditionary fleet. The actions of the island nation's navy immediately alerted the German expeditionary fleet. What do the islanders want to do? Do they attack us on both sides? Major General Mayofu said with a frown. It doesn't look like it. No matter how stupid the islanders are, they should know that the main guns of their armored cruisers and protected cruisers can't penetrate the armor of our capital ships at all. Lieutenant General Spee said. Even the main guns of the battleships of the island navy cannot penetrate the armor of the battle cruisers of the German expeditionary fleet, let alone those armored cruisers and protected cruisers. The main guns of the armored cruisers of the island navy, except for the Kasuga, which has a single 254mm gun and a 203mm twin main gun, the rest are twin 203mm main guns. Such a main gun naturally cannot pose much threat to the armored cruisers of the German expeditionary fleet. As for those protected cruisers, except for the Kasagi class protected cruisers equipped with two 203mm single mounted guns, the rest are equipped with 152mm naval guns. Threaten. No matter what the islanders are planning, as long as they are sunk, we have no threat. Lieutenant General Spee said. Order our cruisers to prepare for battle. The secondary guns of all capital ships are ready to provide fire support for the cruisers. When necessary, a main gun can be dispatched from the capital ship to support them. Lieutenant General Spee ordered. Yes, General. Major General Maofu nodded. After all, the German expeditionary fleet has only 10 light cruisers in total, of which 2 are protecting the transport fleet, and only 8 are capable of combat. Compared with the 8 armored cruisers and 13 protected cruisers of the island navy, the German navy is far behind in terms of cruisers. The only advantage is probably that you can use capital ships. The main guns of the battle cruisers of the German expeditionary fleet can easily pose a fatal threat to these armored cruisers and protected cruisers of the island navy. Its large number of 150mm secondary guns and 120mm rapid fire guns can also cause fatal damage to those armored cruisers and protected cruisers. Under such circumstances, it is almost impossible for the island navy to use these cruisers to threaten the battle cruisers of the German navy. Amaterasu, God bless you. We must kill the German cruisers and destroyers. In that case, we will be able to defeat them with lightning strikes. Major Jintaro Yamashita kept praying to Amaterasu God, praying to bring them good luck. When the capital ship was unable to deal with the German expeditionary fleet, using the destroyer to launch a lightning strike became their only chance to come back. However, the German expeditionary fleet also has a lot of destroyers, although the number is smaller than that of the island navy combined fleet. But it is still completely possible to provide protection for the battle cruisers of the German expeditionary fleet. Therefore, the joint fleet of the island nation's navy must first find a way to deal with the cruisers and destroyers of the German expeditionary fleet. Chapter 725, True Intention. The captain of the armored cruiser Kasuga, Sakamoto Shigekuni, is the commander of the armored cruiser formation of the United Fleet. The order he received was to lead the armored cruiser formation and the protected cruiser formation to deal with the cruisers and destroyers of the German expeditionary fleet. Clear the way for combined fleet destroyers to launch lightning strikes. The Germans only have 8 light cruisers and 21 destroyers. With the strength of our armored cruiser and protected cruiser formation, there is no problem in solving them, Sakamoto Shigekuni said with confidence. After all, armored cruisers and light cruisers are not of the same class at all. The main gun of an armored cruiser can easily shred a light cruiser. However, the main guns of light cruisers can hardly cause fatal damage to armored cruisers. As for destroyers, it goes without saying. Order the formation, close the distance to 8,000 meters, and then open fire. Commander Sakamoto Shigekuni ordered. Hey, sir. But what about the protected cruiser formation? I'm afraid they need to get closer. A staff officer made an opinion. Let them wait for the protective cruiser formation. With our armored cruisers, it is enough to eliminate the small and medium-sized German warships. Sakamoto Shigekuni seemed very confident. Seeing this, the staff officer had no choice but to say nothing more. Fire. With the order of the gunner, the armored cruiser Kasuga began shelling with a single 40 caliber 254mm gun and a dual mounted 45 caliber 203mm main gun. In addition, the 740 caliber 152mm single mounted guns on the side also started firing. The other 7 armored cruisers also launched an attack immediately after. The 203mm main gun and the 152mm secondary gun began to pour shells. The 8 light cruisers of the German Navy, all equipped with 150mm main guns, also began to fight back. Unlike another time and space, the German Navy in this time and space has a soft spot for triple-mounted main guns. Therefore, even these light cruisers use 3 triple-mounted main guns instead of 4 dual-mounted main guns in another time and space. At the same time, the diameter ratio of the main gun has also been increased from 45 times the caliber to 50 times the caliber to further enhance the armor-piercing capability of the main gun. Boom. 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 The cruisers of the two sides fought fiercely, but the light cruisers of the German Navy faced the armored cruisers of the island navy, and they were inherently at a disadvantage. This makes them very disadvantaged in the battle. Fortunately, the 5 150mm secondary guns and 6 120mm rapid-fire guns on the side of the battle cruiser can provide them with support. In addition, the main guns and secondary guns of the armored cruisers of the Japanese Navy are far inferior to the German Navy. You come and go, the two sides fight almost equally. Boom. Boom. 2 150mm artillery shells hit the armored cruiser Kasuga in succession. Even though its main armor is as thick as 150mm, it is still a bit difficult to resist the 150mm main gun fired by the 50 caliber main gun. Especially the superstructure, which was easily penetrated and ignited a raging fire. Although such an injury is not fatal to an armored cruiser with a displacement of more than 8,000 tons, once the fire continues to spread, it will also cause great damage to them. Haga. Senior Sakamoto Shigekuni gritted his teeth after seeing such a situation. He never expected that the 8 armored cruisers of his own side would still not be able to gain an advantage against the 8 light cruisers of the German Navy. If that's the case, how can this battle go on? The battle between the cruisers was undoubtedly even more tragic. After all, capital ships generally have thick armor. Even if they are hit, they may not be able to penetrate the armor. But the cruiser is different. The armor of the cruiser is very weak. Once it is hit, it may be broken down, causing a lot of damage to the battleship. Boom. A 203mm artillery shell hit the bow of the cruiser Karlsruhe. Only 60mm thick armor was in front of the 203mm artillery shell, which was no different from paper paste, and it was pierced at once. After the shell exploded, the cabin under the bow caused a raging fire. Soon, more and more German cruisers were also hit. Although, during the battle, they also hit the armored cruisers of the island navy many times, and those armored cruisers they hit ignited raging fire. However, it was still unable to sink those armored cruisers. General, our light cruisers are really at a disadvantage against the armored cruisers of the islanders. Major General Mayofu said. Lieutenant General Spee nodded. Now he has to make a choice. Should we deal with the capital ships of the island navy first, or deal with their armored cruisers? If you choose to deal with the armored cruisers of the island navy, you have to temporarily let go of the battleship of the island navy. However, if you choose to deal with the capital ships of the island navy first, then your own cruiser formation will definitely suffer heavy losses. If it is not done well, it will be sunk by the navy of the island country. Boom. There was a huge explosion, and the light cruiser Karlsruhe was shrouded in smoke and flames. When the gunpowder smoke cleared, the light cruiser Karlsruhe had become tattered and began to sink rapidly. Damn. The ammunition depot of the Karlsruhe was hit. The armor of the light cruiser has never been able to withstand the 203mm main gun. Major General Mayofu sighed. This is the first warship we lost in this battle. Lieutenant General Spee's face was also frighteningly dark. Originally, Lieutenant General Spee hoped to defeat the island navy without losing a single warship in this naval battle. However, the sinking of the light cruiser Karlsruhe completely defeated his hope. This made Lieutenant General Spee very dissatisfied. However, Lieutenant General Spee knew that this was war. There will always be casualties in wars, and it is almost impossible to truly achieve zero casualties. General, don't the islanders want to get rid of our cruisers and destroyers first? Major General Maofu said suddenly. Lieutenant General Spencer's mind also had a flash of inspiration. He suddenly realized that he seemed to have missed something. Damn it, the islanders know that the capital ship is not our opponent, so they want to take a slant. They plan to deal with our destroyers after our cruisers are dealt with. In this way, they can use a large number of destroyers to deal with our destroyers. The battle cruisers are under siege, Lieutenant General Spee said. Major General Maofu's complexion suddenly turned livid. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.